I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I will now call to order the workshop meeting for August 28th, 2024. I want to take this time to welcome everyone and thank you for being here. I see some new faces joining us today. So if we have some citizens here, I just want to let you know that this is our workshop time. We take questions but not comments during workshops. And there are, do we have yellow cards?
We do, on the back table.
On the table over here if you want to speak at any time. There will be an opportunity at the end of the workshop for questions. And so with that, we'll just jump right into our agenda. Agenda item number 1 is to review the draft agenda for our regular school board meeting on September 5th. Mr. Brown.
So, Madam Chair, if I could, we're going to reverse the order here because we do have a guest here. I'm going to change the order. But before we did that, I'd be remiss if I didn't say since the last time we met, we've had the opening of school. The opening of school never gets old for me each and every year to see the smile on young person's faces as they come in. And you know who was smiling even more than the students? The parents, as they dropped their child off and waved as they left. And I just remember greeting a young man coming off the bus at Grove Park, and I said to him, "Hey, you excited to be here?" He goes, "Yes, I'm excited." I said, "You excited to learn new things?" He said, "No." He was excited. So sometimes their motivation for coming to school, and it's all part of the ritual of what happens in schools. We're really proud to start school year off. I know each year we always kind of take a look at school systems in particular. We turn everything on at one time, right? All the computers have to work at the exact same moment. All the buses have to run at the exact same time. Like no other industry does it shut off and then turn back on all at one time. And so when I look at that, you know, I'm very proud of how the district has done to open it. That doesn't mean we haven't had a late bus or something happen along the way, but when you look at the big picture, you see that a lot of hard work by a lot of people, and extremely proud of the start that happens in our school system this year. So with that in mind, we've got several things here today, as you can see on the agenda. But one of the things, just to kind of tee this off, we've titled it Family and Community Engagement Presentation. And so one of the things that we heard from the board, and is certainly something that's actually goal 3 in our strategic plan, is family and community engagement. We talked about the need for families to be more involved in the educational process. I know we've had a great deal of talk about parents' rights. When you look at the percentage of time that students are in school versus at home, it's 86-14, and I always do that math problem. 86% of the time they're with families, 14% of the time with us. I've always said, superintendent, you got to maximize your 14%, because 14% is very low. 86% of the time they're with families. So we need to engage families more to be involved in the educational process. I've also heard from the board related things using technology, like improving our website, and doing those kinds of things. And so we're looking for ways to do that. We're going to make a presentation here and to kick it off. Before I do that, though, we've also done some other things internally to kind of promote this idea and the strategic plan goal 3, which is Karen McMillan, where are you? Karen McMillan was in school choice. We moved her over to family and community engagement and hire somebody different for the school choice position. We also had a position that we left unfilled last year, but now we filled with Paula Summers, which some of you might know Paula. Paula is kind of like music royalty.
Yes, she is.
If you go out to Oakleaf and there's a musical thing, the whole Summers family is there.
That's exactly right.
Mike is the band director at the junior high. She was the music person at ODE. The son is, well, they're all talented musicians. And anytime there's an event, it's like the Von Tropps. One of the things that we were looking at is different ways of engagement through volunteerism. So there's a whole volunteer program. And that, of course, leads to additional safety and security protocols related to volunteers and all of that. So all that infrastructure is going on behind the scenes. And with that introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Terry Dennis, who's now got a brief presentation to introduce our guest.
All right, so Terry Dennis, Community Relations. So we were technically Communications Department, and now we're going to be the Community Relations Department and ITS Solutions. So this is an agenda item that you will see today. Which button do I press?
You got it.
Okay. All right, so quick little introduction of what we call ourselves as a communications cadre. So when I came into this role 2 years ago, I realized how closely communications and IT works together. So we made it a point to create a cadre to have monthly meetings so that everybody was on the same page with communications and IT. So in our community relations team, we have me, Terry. We also have Trudy Bosey, who's our graphic designer, Karen McMillan for family and community engagement, and Paula Summers, who is working on volunteer stuff right now. And I'm pretty sure Principal Martin was going to like slash my tires at the July recruitment fair when he was like, you took her. And she's fabulous, so she has hit the ground running. Our ITS members, we have Ethan Karen, who's in our cadre, Director of ITS, Sabrina Thomas, our Supervisor of Technology Services, and Linda Schreiber, who is ill today, but she's our Technology Integration Specialist and our webmaster that handles our website. We also have Kelly Watt as part of our cadre, so that we always have the superintendent's leadership voice as well. So part of the reason I'm talking to you today is we noticed we have 4 challenges when it comes to our communication and ITS world. So I wanted to kind of preface those challenges with you guys right now so you can kind of get the backstory of what we've noticed over the past year since we've worked on Goal 3, the strategic plan. The first one is we do not currently have a tool that allows for direct messaging for communication between teachers, coaches, club members, and parents, or even students. So we don't. We have Synergy Mail, and that's how we've been communicating. We've had personnel that have used non-approved items before, like our Band or Reminder JoJo app, and Ethan's team works really, really hard to block those at the district level due to state statute and safety requirements that we have when it comes to data protection of our students and public records. We also know from talking to a lot of our parents, most of them are working and they have their personal email linked through Synergy, so they are not throughout the day able to get on their personal email to see if there is a message to communicate back and forth. They also cannot sometimes just leave a meeting to pick up a robocall if something is going on, but they have said they have the ability to look at an app or a text message. Another challenge that we have right now would be our website. That is something that this board has expressed as well in previous workshops. On our end with the website, we do not have a way to streamline communication all synced nicely from our Meta, which would be something that Sabrina and I work on with our social media, to our website, which was what Linda would be doing as the webmaster. So for an example, if we have a hurricane and we're all sitting at the EOC and we know that school's going to close, it is not as seamless as click as a button to get all of that message across 43 school pages, the district page, and 43 social media sites, and then a robocall. It is definitely a divide and conquer amongst the team, and so having an option with a platform to integrate all of that would be very crucial on our website in something as an emergency or school closure. Another thing that we always have to work through with Linda is ensuring that our website is ADA compliance, and that is a lot of work when you're thinking of all the different pages of 43 websites and making sure everything works for screen readers and everything. And then as our ELL population continues to grow in Clay County, we have a need for language translations in our website. We want to make sure that when families are coming in and relocating to Clay County, that they find our website to be a welcoming place that they can understand and support their child with through language translations. Our other 2 challenges that we have would also be our student and staff digital safety. We want a way to get out our lockdown robocalls faster. Right now we do that through a Blackboard, which oftentimes is a principal then having to go and get their laptop and record it through that system. We also want to have a way with our attendance campaign to have our attendance notifications more timely. And then something that is very important to our team would be the stricter laws surrounding youth using social media. So right now, a lot of our schools, especially our high schools, do a promotion of whether it's parking decals, yearbook on sale, homecoming tickets. They put a lot of that information on their social media pages. And if you're a child whose parent doesn't allow you to have social media, you could feel like you have missed out on the information. We've also had a discussion with several parents where they themselves didn't see it because it's lost in their algorithm and they don't want to have to hunt down their child's social media pages and if they're following the right one, or a fake community page that was made that we have to then go and work and shut down. So we've definitely really had that as a concern, that promoting so much of our information on social media, we realize we're losing a big part of our community who is not using social media or do not want their children to use social media. And another major safety concern would be the oversight of communication between student and teacher conversations and parent and teacher conversations. So as a cadre, our team would never encourage an adult, a staff member, to give out their cell phone number to a student. Can I say that 100% always happens, whether it's in the coaching world or in a club world when it comes to band? That is something we don't monitor because we don't have access to that. But if we give a platform for that to happen, then we then have oversight with that as well. And it's the same thing when it comes to teachers, where we would say, hey teachers, we don't want you giving out your personal cell phone numbers. To parents, where we give you another option of how you could communicate. And then finally, last but not least, Ms. Gillhausen, you have 3 children, so you might experience this. I have 2. It is the, let me go back one. It's the abundance of apps. There's so many things that we are told, you gotta download this, you gotta follow this. So we have included in the back of your packet our current communication tools. It's a long list if you see all the current communication. I don't know why I'm still flipping. Don't know what's happening. Is it me? Okay, we're back. So the current communication tools document you guys will see at the end of your packet. And that is right now currently all of our existing technologies that our cadre team works diligently to keep up and running, to keep staff members trained on, and looking to have a seamless, integrated, adopted, all-inclusive communications platform would be the dream for everybody, parents and staff. All right, so as a cadre, we never make decisions in a silo. We value community input. And so we went ahead and did, in March of 2024, a communication survey. So we had over 1,000 respondents, specifically about would they use a feature like text messaging. We had 60% of our teachers respond, yes, they would. We had 76% of our athletic coaches would, and 64% of our extracurricular sponsors. And I would like to also point out for this, Ms. Kidwell, that if a teacher does not want to have an app for communication on their personal device, they don't have to, because there is a desktop option. So Jen will talk to us about that as well. So we know that could have been one of the concerns. Kelly represents us on the Superintendent's Advisory Council with Superintendent Broski. So she had 2 presentations on 2 platforms that do very similar things. That would be Apptegy and Parent Square. They had them in April and May, surveyed the teachers that we have on that committee, and overwhelmingly of 73%, we had the teachers say they would like Apptegy. Another thing that we did as a cadre is we know that when you talk to a lot of different companies, we always get like a sales pitch, and we wanted to make sure that we heard it from the horse's mouth. So we actually reached out to our partners, our colleagues in the district throughout the state, to see what are you using, how are you using it, what did you like. So we met with the communications and instructional leaders from Putnam County who have been using Apptegy for years now and have raved about it. Personally made a call to Sarasota County as well. They just launched Apptegy this last spring, raved about it. And then we also talked to Columbia County, who's been using Parent Square. So we made sure that we talked to people who were the actual end users of the product. We wanted to know, how did the rollout go in your community? What were things that you would have done differently from the rollout? What was it like working with the vendor? What would the feedback be? So we made sure to go ahead and get all of that information. So based on the survey results, our work with the advisory council, and reaching out to our colleagues across the state, our recommendation for the school board would be to utilize Apptegy as our communication and website platform and move away from Blackboard, which was acquired by Finalsite, which is who we do right now our robocalls with, and our current Google Sites, which right now is managed by Linda Schreiber. Also, our total estimated cost that we are spending right around now is $153,000 to work the communications and websites that we have going on now. So you will see the cost differential in the agenda item. And with Apptegy, our hope would be taking all of those tools that you have on that one page and consolidating it into one integrated solution for K through 12. And the person who's going to be able to take you through it much better than I can, and hopefully this will be something she would be training us on in the next coming months, would be Jen Ragsdale. She's our Senior National Partnerships Manager at Apptegy. She's all the way here from Arkansas. And then when she's done, I'll kind of close up with a roadmap and a timeline for you guys. Yes, I'll go ahead and pass. Yeah.
I always like to say I bring party favors. Sometimes it's cookies, sometimes it's other things. Today it's just brochures. I feel like something that you can, in this day and age, something you can take home in your hand, I think is a great thing. Where everything's Zoom and digital, and we don't have pictures of our children anymore or anything like that. They all just live on these things. So, yeah, I would love to be able to talk you through a little bit about what we do and what these tools that Terry was talking about actually look like. Fantastic. You can see the phone screen up there. First of all, yes, my name is Jen Ragsdale. Just a quick backstory on me. I do work for Apptegy in Little Rock, Arkansas, which is where Apptegy was started about 10 years ago. I also happen to be one of Apptegy's first clients. I was a communications director for about 11 years. So I like to think I've been there. It's kind of like a third child. I've been there from day one in some capacity, either working there or as a client. So really excited about what Apptegy does. I mean, you have an amazing team. Thank you, Board Superintendent Broski and team, for allowing me to be here to tell you a little bit. You have an amazing team that's done a lot of great due diligence. Their tenacity on researching other clients and talking to people has been fantastic. So it's been really refreshing to work with, and I love that. Apptegy does want to come in and streamline the way that your tools look on a line item budget. I know as a board that's important to you guys. But our biggest vision and what sets us apart from other companies is the way that we want to engage your families and the community. So, that the fact that it's now this community engagement team, I love that as well. So it's going to be one of those things that we want to make it easier for not just your families and parents and guardians to be able to see all the amazing things that Clay County's doing, but also in this day and age, the community has to see that as well. And sometimes that's where a little bit of a disconnect can come in, and what parents can see versus what the community can see. So first I'll show you this. I think this will kind of bring to light one of Terry's points. This is what an average parent's folder for school communicating applications can look like at any given moment. All great, products, all great ways to try to communicate with a school or a coach or a club sponsor or a teacher. Most of these are behind a password or credentialing in, and that's great. We want that for student data privacy. We don't want our parents to have a whole folder to keep up with their kids, though, and then God forbid they have more than one. The other part of this is that if you'll notice, if it's credentialed and it's something geared specifically to parents, then what are you not reaching? You're not reaching the community. So at Apptegy, we try to put that kind of all in one place, and I want to kind of show you an example to illustrate what that looks like. So, for example, this is the Sarasota County app that Apptegy built. So first and foremost, you'll see I have a place to customize what notifications that I want to get. What do I want to see on a regular basis? I can pick my school, I can pick the district, I can pick everything I want to see. So immediately, we're allowing the parent to tailor what their view is. But again, now think about this. I haven't logged into anything. This is all public facing. So members of your community, even aunts, uncles, grandparents, or just the taxpayers that have zero connection to the district at all, can come in and see what are the great things that Clay County's doing. So we build native apps. Why is that important? A native app is important because it's not going to drive you outside of the app. It's going to keep you in the native app, and everything in this app is going to be in the language that the person's phone is in. So translation becomes obsolete because we're meeting them where they are. Because it's natively built, when they go into the App Store, they're seeing apps in their phone's language. They're seeing everything in their phone's language. So that's a really crucial part of a native built app. Also, just being able to engage them and it connect and harness the power of the iOS. So for example, this is the district page at Sarasota.
if I'm wanting to come in and go to this meeting where we select the science textbooks, I can add this to my calendar directly. I can pull up turn-by-turn directions. Now, y'all, I'm going to be wondering later today or tomorrow why I need to go to a science. I'm going to be getting on an airplane going, what is that? Oh, I know this. Being able to pull up, turn-by-turn directions, either from your Apple Maps or your Google Maps. All these things that are truly going to harness what we have become so reliant on these devices to do. And that's the power of the iOS. We want people to be able to see all that's going on. We'll go back to this little menu. We also want to be able to see how to reach out to somebody. If I want to reach out to the registrar and I need to let something be known, now I can call directly or email directly. And all this is still happening again without having to credential into anything. This is all forward-facing and engaging your community. But last but not least, and what's always kind of my wheelhouse, is what Apptegy does different, is we natively build in all the positive stories that people are telling. So we don't want your families or your students to have to be reliant on social media to go and see all these things. And that's really what's happened in the last 5 or 10 years. We've got these beautiful websites we're all building, which are very hard to keep constantly up to date and keep fresh, and they get stale and they get stagnant very quickly. But they're able to go to social media and see all these great stories like first day of school and back to school pics and a great teacher-parent moment or a great teacher-student moment. But why does that not live anywhere else? And even better, why does that not live in our brand? Why do we have to send them out to a third party to get this? A third party we don't have any control of. So we're really intentional in how we build out the way to engage with the community. Again, we haven't credentialed into anything yet. So you're seeing all the great things that are happening. Looks like a teacher got flowers on the first day of school. All of these things are showing up right here in the branded district app. And if I don't ever want to step foot on social media again, I don't have to. I think that's a big win. So, but what's really interesting is that all the things that are in this app, we don't want to give one more box to check to your teams. You guys have great district employees, and the last thing we want to do is say, hey, this is a great way to reach people, so let's give you one more box to check. Let's give you one more place to go update things and spin a plate. So the way that we've designed it is that everything that shows up in this app is also showing up on the homepage of your website that we'll build out. But it's also going to show up in all the social medias in case these people are married to Facebook, and we all know there are those people. So we want to be able to hit everything with a lack of effort just by the push of one button. So now let's move on to how can this help your parents and your families, the constituents that are your most important priority here. So this little button down here that you see at Sarasota, as you can see, it says rooms. So this is kind of where the paradigm shift happens from community engagement and public facing to direct engagement with the families. I don't have a child in Sarasota County, but I do have a login here for our lovely little demo app. So I can show you now what this looks like on this side of things. So as a parent logs in to rooms, they're going to be able to credential in either with their face, either with putting in their phone number and getting a password to do a 2-factor authentication or just a token. But they're going to only get it one time when you guys come on board with Apptegy. They're not going to have to do it every school year. It's automatically going to follow their students through all of the things. And when they come in every single time, they're going to see however many lovely kiddos they have. They're going to see all those kiddos, not just classes, but clubs, sports, anything like that that they're involved in. So it gives all of those teachers, additionally coaches, club sponsors, another safe way to communicate with families that they may not have had before and might have been the ones that had to go rogue and give out a phone number or whatever. So as a parent, if I'm clicking in, I'm going to check on this kiddo. I can go into one class. Within the class, the first thing you're going to see is the stream. So this is going to be kind of all the global announcements to the whole class. A field trip permission form, weekly announcements, what's going on, picture day, test coming up, here's a Quizlet to study, and fun things that are happening in the classroom. Again, just a good way to kind of have good rapport, positive word of mouth, or what's happening. But where it gets really significant is that you have the means to do the two-way communication right here within the branded app. There's full administrative oversight. So these teachers don't have to worry about getting accused of saying something that they didn't say. Or these students don't have to worry about, what's happening over here. All of this is going to be able to be seen by high-level administration. It's got that oversight. So those teachers are protected, those students are protected, and that's exactly the way it should be. But you're able to go in, you can have this group message, communicate with the parents, type some messages, go back and forth. Again, that translation feature is going to be automatic to whatever language their phone is set to. You can even go and see who the participants are. So you can see who's linked as a guardian to each of these students, because we all know in this day and age, a same last name doesn't always guarantee somebody goes with somebody. So we want to make sure the teachers always know who it is that's connected to, but then they can communicate back and forth in a two-way private manner. The students can't initiate conversations with other students. The teachers aren't initiate conversations with other teachers. It's all happening as a parent and teacher and student dynamic. So just so you know how that works. The other factors that are in here, especially for our younger grades who might have been into the class dojo, things like that, they're really big on, the buzzword is PBIS, so positive behavior, and it's a way to give points, it's a way to kind of interact in the classroom and show all the different things that are happening, send notes on a lower level, like elementary school students, on how they're doing. For those parents that we know tend to be a little bit more helicopterish, because the babies are younger and they want to see how are they doing. They worked hard today, they tried something new, they were igniting curiosity, all of those things. So we've really tried to tailor it as something that can be used for preschool all the way up till 12th grade effectively and efficiently. So that's kind of the broad overview of the things that are in here. Class info is going to be kind of the syllabus. It can be your office hours. It can kind of be your background, your history. Anything that you as the teacher is wanting to put out there can be out there. So this is all going to be what the parents can see once they log in to that room side of things. So we've covered both the kind of the community engagement side of things, and then also covered what it's going to look like for one-to-one communication. Let me get over to this screen again, and I'll go to showcase. Where does this come from? Because I know that's everyone's first question, right? So the back end of what the platform looks like and what makes it so great and easy to use is that everything's in one place. The platform is called ThrillShare. I know it's a crazy name. When teachers are coming in to work on things, this is what they're going to see on this side of things. These are the classrooms that they see. Here's that language arts class that we were looking at, how they can go in and create the messages, attach the materials, throw that behavior up on a shared screen in the classroom, give all the little monsters little points and things like that. So this can be a really interactive way that they're doing it. But getting into the broad overview of what Terry was talking about and how to get things out is what I want to transition to now. So this is the main part of ThrillShare. This is going to be more on a district type level. This is called ThrillShare. Obviously, we're going to share out some thrills. But what this looks like is when they do have something that they want to post, either a great story or that you do have to get out something, a hurricane warning, a school closure, a lockdown, anything like that. This is what makes their lives easier, because from their desktop or from their phones, they can come in here and type the message one time. School is closing now. Obviously, we're going to have more warning than that, but it can go with the push of one button out to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The live feed, which as I mentioned is the homepage of the website and the homepage of the app. They can send a push notification, which actually gets through statistically faster than those SMS texts. So when it's an emergency, we're going to get them fast on their phones. But then also your text alerts, your voice call, which is either recorded or your voice or Superintendent Broski's voice, whoever's voice they know, and then an email. And you can do it all with the push of one button. And not just district-wide, but if Terry gets in there and they're like, hey, we've got to close every single school, instead of having to get a hold of all the principals and wait for them all to update, then she can literally go in there again from her phone or from her computer and say select all, and then hit every school and district, all the social media pages, homepages of websites, homepages of app, and everything else. I'll show you a little bit here, Sarasota, real fast. I'll pull it up because since we looked at their
While you're
app.
pulling that up, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
As far as like the robocall or whatever
Mhm.
that goes on there, is this all included? Like every button that you put out, it includes the text, it includes the phone, it includes, so it's not additional charges?
Yep, no, it's all one package, yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
So you can send out as many as you want?
yes, unlimited.
So the challenge now is we have to do it individually by school. We
Right.
can't just press one button
Right.
and send all.
Right.
And I know the breakdown of like every text you send could be money, every voice call you send could be money, so that's why I wanted to make sure that it was
Right.
all.
Yeah, so we build that in, and we learned a long time ago when we wanted to work with districts of all sizes, that if we just factored it in with a simple per student cost, then that allowed us the equity to be able to work with districts of 130,000, or I think the largest we work with in Florida is Duval County, but then we have small rural districts in southern states that may even have less than 100 kids. So, sorry, this is not loading exactly, but Sarasota, as Sarah said, just rolled out their website last year. This is what it looks like. You'll be able to see all the great things, you know, that parents need to see, the upcoming events and all of that, the great things that are going on. But if you'll notice down here, this section that says good news, this is that same post. It's the same thing that we just saw in the app. And then it's going to be the same thing parents can see on social media and everywhere else. So that consistent information getting out everywhere is what we really want to do. We want to meet people wherever they go, but we want them to see all the great things that are happening. So the other factor I know that was mentioned in the bullet points for the things that are important to you guys is that translation mode. So all of the websites are fully translatable. All you have to do is come in and click on whatever language you want to translate it into, and since it's running a little slow, it may be a little bit of a delay, but it's simply that button up at the top, and then every family can transition the whole website into their native language and be able to see everything that's going on that fast.
When you say native language, how many languages are you talking? Everything?
Everything,
Haitian, Creole
yeah,
to
yeah. Now you can
Chinese to
tailor what
Mandarin
you
to-
want the options to be. It looks like they've chosen about 9. So,
Okay.
I mean, obviously you're gonna know kind of what your demographics are within your district. There's some districts on the East Coast that drop down as 20 or 30 deep. You know, it gets a little bit more robust. So we can put as many in there as you want in there. So, and then they can even search for more if it's just a one-off or something like that. But we want to give that opportunity to reach everybody where they are. We want to help with engaging the community and then the families as a whole and give them one place. And then you as a board and a district, we want to give you guys one place instead of having a bunch of different tools.
I have another question from
Sure.
a teacher perspective. Class Dojo was very popular. Ethan, no. I know it wasn't your fault. There are times when, let's say I, as a teacher, see something that's going on very positively in my class. I see a young man helping somebody, whatever, and I want to click a quick picture and send it to that parent.
Yes.
And give them the reason why he just scored a couple of points, or whatever the case might be.
Yes.
Are pictures allowed in this as well?
Yes, so pictures are allowed in it, and then the Thrill Share application, I mentioned there is a mobile version as well. So my superintendent loved to be able to walk up and down the halls and snap that quick picture of something that was happening with his phone and type in, you know, check out, you know, the 3rd grade helpers of the week or something, and then create that. There is also a waiting for approval, so it really opens you up to allowing people to tell the story of the district through their own lens, through that lens of a teacher. I used a lot of students, I used my yearbook staff, my publication team, stuff like that, because there's just nothing like seeing it through the lens of the native storyteller. And the way Thrill Share is set up, it will give your community engagement team the ability to kind of lay eyes on it before it goes out forward facing. So even my dear sweet superintendent, when he would create a post, it'd still come to me for approval.
But if it's just between a parent and a teacher,
Yes, yes.
does it still have that pause for somebody else to?
No, if
Okay.
it's in that direct two-way communication,
Right.
then that's
Right.
automatic. You know, that's an audience of one. So, but if it is something that's going to go out school-wide or even bigger district-wide,
I'm thinking when the child was dropped off, they were crying. It is now 10 o'clock and this child has a huge grin on their face
And we've
and
turned
they're
a corner,
happy and
yeah.
they're playing and click.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mom, he's fine, or she's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very easy. If they're comfortable using their personal devices, which I know most are, but, you know, then they can just pull that out, snap that, and be able to send it seamlessly right there within that.
so.
Well, I just have to say, I was a secondary teacher, but
Yes.
I prayed for you and you came. I went to did some research after I read the agenda. And as a secondary teacher, if there's someone not in your class and you knew they were supposed to be there, this is for me, I did point systems for reading. Reading's always a real trouble spot, getting kids motivated.
Yeah.
The fact that you don't just have to keep everything up on a wall and then text each parent or email each parent, or the fact that it keeps track of all that, and on serious issues, also inviting people, making parents feel more welcome in your room, inviting them to your room. I mean, literally, I knew there had to be something out there better than what we were doing. And I just want to tell you, I was floored yesterday when I went to your website.
Well, I'll tell you, I prayed for Apptegy, but we didn't have the two-way classroom communication when I used it as a communications director, so I must not have prayed hard enough, because I still had to lay awake at night and worry about, not necessarily the teachers, but the coaches were always the thorn in my side, because
Well, I coach track. I mean, it's an issue.
bless their hearts, that's what we say in the South, bless their hearts, they were the ones coming back on a bus that's probably gonna break down, or they're stuck in traffic, and they're the ones that had to get parents, so they're the ones that would be like, hey, join this group text, that I've got.
Which brings up another question related to that. Does Synergy communicate
Yes.
then with Apptegy so that I don't have to generate the list of students in my class
Correct.
for math, science,
One of our
this
first
group,
questions.
and then
Like if you have 100
so they
students.
talk, they communicate, they will generate the list of not just the parents, but but all of the parents?
Yeah.
Because, mom and dad mom is married to this guy and dad is married to this woman, and they all have to be communicated with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And something that would be a positive when you do a system rollover like this, is it would help us catch a lot of those pieces in Synergy where there might be some, outdated emails and phone numbers, and start getting some more updated, correct contact information.
What about grades?
This would not be for,
I mean, I see up there though, you can see the sections.
So it's going to sync directly with their Google Classroom, but we will not, that's the one thing that we won't replace, is that learning management system, the grade system, the SIS that houses all of that. That's not a cookie that we've wanted to cut into. SISs are, that student information system and the data that they hold, there's so much there. And but we do sync directly with that. So
I
whatever.
just saw the courses.
Yeah, so this is what the teacher's gonna see when she comes in and needs to be able to, put things in for the classes. It's just gonna streamline their view to just see just theirs. And then like you said, if that behavior, the younger kiddos and stuff like that, if it's something that needs to be something that they even use interactively in the classroom and share them on a screen. And everyone's got their little emoji and you can see what their points are, and it becomes just a fun, competitive kind of environment in the
But
classroom.
there's nothing stopping a parent from asking why so-and-so has a 0.
And that's
I mean,
cool.
all of that conversation that takes place around a Synergy grade can happen in this.
it would happen in rooms.
Okay.
And I think also, if I may, Jen, real quick, one of the things that I love about it from like our social media management standpoint, and I know Mr. Brodsky, I've told him that was one of my huge selling points, is when you're looking at it on the app, it looks very familiar to if you're using like a Facebook page or something. The feed looks very similar. But as Sabrina and I call it, it's more of like a billboard. This is like when you're driving by and you see it and you're like, okay, I needed to know that. I didn't need to know that your books are on sale and I see a comment that the chicken nuggets today were horrible. Because that's sometimes what happens, is that we get comments on some of the things that derail the entire post of what's needed to know. And so this is just a really great way, selfishly on my end, to just continue to share the information that needs to be known without necessarily, like if you wanted to have a comment like that, that is great. Maybe share it through rooms with us in a different method.
Not everybody wants to know about the chicken nuggets.
Yes, like just
Jen?
Yes.
It looks like a wonderful package. I've got one question, and call me negative Nanny.
You're fine.
Tell me again who has access to this.
Which capacity? Let's narrow that down.
Well, I worry about somebody on the outside and
So-
and I worry about security.
Right.
And information. We give out way too much information about where we're at every day, what we're doing, and that just, It's something I have to ask.
So the things that are on the forward facing, again, that community engagement side of the app, before we had to credential in. And the only way they can credential in is if they live in your student information system and are linked up to a student as a guardian.
Okay.
They have no other way to see any of the direct student data unless they have that. And there'll be a process as we go through the training where every guardian that should have it will be given a token and they're able to set up that rooms for the first time, which will then, like I said, follow the students throughout their years. That forward-facing side, in terms of what's happening on the calendar, you know, what they're eating for lunch, and those positive stories that are happening, anybody can see that, but it's no different information than what you would already have on the homepage of your website or on one of your social media pages for the district or a school. So the only things that can be consumed by everyone are going to be the same things that are already being consumed by everyone, just now in another platform.
And if there's some children that parents don't want their picture taken, then we do that.
Yes, so I had some of those, and that's another really important aspect of having that approval system. When you do create something as global as this, to streamline and make lives easier, it can also cause complications, because wait, now it's going everywhere at one time, and you want someone to be able to lay eyes on it. And it may not, at a campus level, it may be the principal, it may be a media specialist, but it's going to be somebody who would know that child can't be photographed, that child, but they're already assessing that, again, on a website, on a social media level anyway.
I have two questions. We're still keeping parent view?
Right, because that is with the,
Yep, so
So
grades
your
and
grades,
attendance
all
and all
that
that.
stuff. Okay. Well, I'm just making sure that, like, are we gonna train our teachers that if we're gonna use this communication, we'll go to that app for grades and stuff, but if we're gonna communicate, can we make sure we're doing it on this app versus, oh, well, I put it on the parent view, yeah, but I'm now paying attention to this, I didn't see that on parent view.
So is there going to be, the
And
policy
then-
needs to reflect this change?
So one of the things that'll be semi of a challenge is sometimes people don't want to make change, right? So people don't want to give up an app that they're currently using. If the purpose of streamlining is to truly streamline, that means you have to give something up in order to streamline. So this will become the official communication tool of Clay County Schools, and that'll have to be communicated through policy of the board that this is the official.
That's what I wanna make sure, because I don't wanna, as a parent, I don't wanna be like you said, we have those
Yeah,
teachers.
you can't
that
just
are
add
like-
one more thing and then say we're streamlining.
Right, and then be like,
That's
here's
one
your
way.
options, and then they're like, oh, well, I put it on center, or the parent view, and I'm like, but I don't check that anymore unless it's for grades or whatever.
Yeah.
But then my other question is forms. I know on parent view, when you sign on, you have all your forms, like your clinic form, your library form, all that stuff. Is that gonna go on here now, or are we gonna leave that on parent view?
No, that'll stay on parent view.
Okay, that's what, because it has field trip forms and stuff right here, consent forms. It has that option.
I think
so
that
that's what I'm
the field
wondering.
trip forms would be a little different. So those forms would be the ones that we are like statutorily had like registration requirement forms, so that would be that piece. But yes, so if you are doing a field trip form for something like that, we now will have a universal way of having it going out.
So maybe saying like class forms will go on communication and actual
Like,
district
yes,
forms
like your
will go
registration
on-
type
trip
forms,
forms.
yeah.
Okay.
So I guess my question, I actually have a different view as a parent and as a teacher. Taking away a whole bunch of apps and giving us one thing is not that bad of a change. Like, I don't think it's gonna be a fight change, right? Like, we've made quite a few changes, but I think this is like the best change when it comes to families. Going from, I mean, even now, I'm trying to help my grandkids, I can't, you know, it's, it could be my age, I'm just saying, even now it's a struggle, even I was in the system, I'm out of the system, I have grandkids, it's a struggle trying to figure that out. So I think this is an easy change and a good change.
We heard that universally when we talked to the teacher advisory council, their parents also. right?
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, why is it that we're loading up on apps and everybody requires different apps? As a parent, I want this. And then they turned around and said, let's look at it as a teacher. We want to streamline too. And so I was just simply commenting that the class dojo lover of the year is not going to give up dojo easily. That's just the way people
This
This
are.
looks
change.
easier
It's a
though.
change.
This is easier than Dojo. You don't have to load everything up, you don't have to do it, but, I mean, this is a better platform for rewarding and behaviors.
We all agree with that. I think his point is just
Yeah,
the thought of at the beginning of the school year having to learn one more thing
yeah,
when
yeah.
I already know this app. I think
Yeah.
that's what you're gonna have to.
And
implement.
which brings up the parent view stuff, right?
Which brings up the question, when would this
Well, I
be?
think that's a great segue.
That's a great segue, yeah. Let me comment one thing and then I'll get Terry to come up. She's got a great timeline and then there's a timeline in your handouts. I will clarify and kind of expound on. So to try to streamline the way that parents do embrace and engage something new, as I mentioned, we build the apps natively. So we're not building a shell that's just driving, parents to 100 different places. But when it does come to those SIS or when it does come to a parent portal like that, to simplify the message that you're sending to parents, we want to give you this branded resource. So we want you to be able to tell families, no matter what, if you pick up your phone, if they want to do this, you go to the Clay County District app. Because what you can do, and I pulled up Duval real fast as an example, they will drive everyone to the Duval County app. But if you'll notice, they've linked, because it's a native built app and we can build it however you want it, we can put your portal into this app. So you can still streamline the way that you position it to families of this is your one-stop shop and this is within your brand. You don't have to go download anything from the App Store except your brand, Clay County Schools. And then they can come in here and we can get them over to the places that they need to go and credential in the ways that they need to credential in as seamlessly as we can. We'll try to remove as many steps and clicks and barriers as humanly possible. So if that makes sense, kind of on that. We still want to try to give parents one source of truth, and we love it when it's in your brand.
And then the website is built with the district personnel, like
Okay,
all together.
Yes, they'll work with us.
And
Yeah.
figuring out what you
Yeah.
want and don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll pull you back up, Terry, then you can,
And then I'll hit on one thing too, this part that you mentioned, that is kind of like a behind the scenes of what we do in our cadre, but we work really, really hard each summer during our Leadership Institute with training our principals and assistant principals about personal identifiable information with our students. So we've had trainings about like the type of pictures we should be taking, making sure we're not putting students' full names, not putting students' birthdays. In the past, sometimes people would do things where they would like sell a birthday shout out on social media. And Ethan and I were like having a little panic attack. So even handwriting, a child's handwriting with their name on a piece of paper is technically PII. So we worked really, really hard these past 2 summers in our Leadership Institute to make sure that when we post pictures, we absolutely want to showcase the great things that are happening in our classrooms, but we want to make sure that we are mindful to first protect a child. So that's a big thing in our department. All right, so real quick, a roadmap to those next steps. We are here at the board workshop with, oh my gosh, our last week of August is already this week, with next week being September 5th, with this presented as hopefully an approval vote. And with that would be a build out of first the websites from September to December, which would be us working directly with the Apptegy team to get all 43 school websites and the district website up and running for a launch with our app and the websites in January, like a Happy New Year, new look, new app for you to download. They are great with helping with the marketing, the video, and everything on that end as well. And so we would really then spend the springtime getting people accustomed with the look and the feel of the app, doing some training with our principals on how to use the app. We will not bring on rooms though, right at the same time. The reasoning for that is halfway through the year, you already have teachers that have however their jive is going with their communications right now, and we don't want to stop them in January and be like, no, pull away from that. We don't want you to do that anymore. So we're gonna just ride with if you've been using Synergy Mail. We would like to not ride if you've been using a non-approved district app, though. Synergy Mail. And then we will take the time over the summer to train our staff on rooms. Also, that gives us the spring as a cadre to work with you guys on a policy, to work with Ms. Kibble. We want to talk about like best practices for teachers, because we do know we want teachers to feel like they have office hours and at 8 o'clock at night they're not answering back and forth a 2-way text message. We want to really protect also people's contractual hours but still communicate effectively and efficiently.
And then our goal would be to launch rooms for our parents and guardians in August of 2025. And I know as a parent, you get hit with all those things in the beginning of the year to sign. So this would literally be, you have been using now the app by this time for almost 8 to 9 months as a parent. So the only thing you're gonna see different is the little toggle on the bottom to rooms. You're gonna get the sign-in code from your child's teacher, and you'll be able to start two-way communication. And have a full
Is this CVA too, virtual school?
Yes, we do have, I believe, CVA in there as well.
Okay.
And this replaces Google Classroom?
As a teacher, you could still use some Google Classroom because you could do some working and presentation with it, but as like a parent having to go in and answer and respond to things through Google Classroom, yes, you would do it through
Okay. But
Rooms.
students,
For the
they still need
teacher,
to
it will
use Google
sync.
Classroom?
Yes, it will sync for the, yes, because we do know sometimes there's,
Oh, it syncs to Google Classroom?
The
Okay.
teachers, if they've already got things out there that are created, that they're just duplicating and using from year to year, it's gonna sync on the teacher side.
Okay.
So,
yes.
All I ask, and I know several parents, well, even teachers sometimes, which I know even after the principals communicate, they still have no idea why we do what we do sometimes, especially parents, because I know that the new systems that are going in the high schools right now, even teachers were like, why do we waste our money on that, you know what I mean? But they don't understand why we're doing what we're doing, how it's an all-in-one system. So all I ask as a board member, and maybe you guys agree or don't agree, but from January on, or even before if you felt like it, could we send out flyers, maybe some of these communications that we already use, like each jar, all that stuff, say, hey parents, just preparing you, we are going to have a new communication device that will replace all of your other apps, just educating them on, we're trying to make your life easier, this is how we're gonna do it, just like 3 little bullet points, whatever, nothing crazy, nothing long and extravagant, but, and preparation, so they understand it's an all-in-one system. We're replacing it, making their lives easier, everything will sync and link, and that they're just aware, and maybe hit them like 2 or 3 times.
Oh, yes.
So that they get the message that, hey, this is what's coming, and this is why we're doing what we're doing, and why we spent taxpayer dollars to do this.
Yes, 100%. And I know we work with Jen as well, like a lot of those documents we do with Peach Jar. They have 1-minute videos that are like very helpful, that are like, here's where you go and download the app. Here's how you put your preferences. Here's how you do this. And it's very, very instructional. So those are things that we will also be including on our social media. We'll be able to send that out through all the school social media, through Peach Jar. We can even do robocalls where it's Mr. Broski's voice as well.
Because they have this rollout plan, I'm sure.
Oh, it is great, and they brand it for us and everything.
Yeah.
Because as a
we have a
team of 2 in our little branding section here, I was like, oh my gosh, how do I have that by December? But Jen, got you.
We have a great marketing team, and they want to make it the best rollout and the best launch as humanly possible. And we've done it over 4,500 times now. That's how many districts across the U.S. we work with. So,
As far as platforms go that you can access this app on, say, like, can a parent or a student access it on a laptop, or does it have to be a mobile device?
There is a,
for teachers,
it's
they can
I know
get
for
it.
teachers they
For
can.
teachers
Yeah.
and administrators, but I mean, there's nothing really that, a parent could get in on the room side, so a student could get in on the room side. Let's say they got grounded from their phone.
Mhm.
They're gonna be able to log in and look at that on their desktop. They're not gonna be able to say, I didn't get your message, teacher, because I'm grounded from my phone.
Right, so if they don't have access to a
Yeah,
device,
all of
they
it can
access
be done on the platform as well. Now, in terms of some of the stories and sharing and stuff like that, then you would just go to the website or something different like that. But in terms of the communication
Right.
tools, yes, that you can access.
So would they
that.
go to Thrillshare on the?
Edu Rooms is the entire Rooms platform.
Okay.
Thrillshare is just going to be something that your teachers and administrators see.
That's
The other thing, that the really big thing about branding and how we want them to be recognizing just Clay County, your parents will never know what Thrillshare is. Your parents will never see Thrillshare. Your parents will never have to download a Thrillshare app. Everything your parents engage with is just going to be Clay County.
Okay, so if they go to the Clay County District website on a laptop, like the instance child gets the phone taken away, they go to the Clay County website, how do they access the classroom from that website?
They'll, their token that they're given at the beginning of the year to sign in and get the app, they'll also be able to go and log in with that same information on
Through the website, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Any other questions? All right, so let me attempt to bring it all back. So let's start 2 years ago. We surveyed all of our community. We had 3 community meetings, state all kinds of input. We decided that there was 5 goals. You know, strategic plan, this has got to set up something for later on in the morning. Goal 3, family and community engagement. 9 months ago, right, there's some intentional strategy behind there. A group of people, the cadre, sounds like the mafia, but it's the cadre. They got together, we're looking at a variety of things, and one of the goals was to streamline communication, because we were hearing from teachers as well as families that this was a challenge that needs to be. We researched all of that, 2 major competitors, did the due diligence. The team favored Apptegy and Jen, the product that you see here. You see the timeline for that. The only other thing that I would kind of point out is that we would be reducing the cost of the existing communication tools. If you're looking at the net increase, which would be a good question, you're looking at a net increase of 75, but you also get the websites, the rooms, and all the other features that are involved there when it comes to the communication tool. So wanted to kind of present it like, hey, this actually started 2 years ago, and when we decided family and community engagement would be one of our 5 strategic plan goals. Then 9 months ago with the cadre forming, and then down to the point where it is now, seems like the plan is pretty realistic in the time frame, and so they've done a great job. So, any other questions? Because Jen, you're welcome to stay to hear about reading, and if you like, I mean, you know, you can hang out if you want, but if you would like to leave, you can also, so we'll give you the option. So thank you so much for being here today.
That's awesome. All done.
Okay, let's segue to my favorite topic, reading. Okay, so one of the things that happened in the last board meeting was, you know, one of the things that happened was board members said, hey, there was some discussion about vocabulary, some discussion about reading practices. The board members said, hey, we'd like to learn more information. So a lot of thought went into that. We're like, okay, let's do a presentation on reading. The challenge is that the presentation should really be about 2 to 3 days.
I was gonna say 3 days.
On reading, and then we said, okay, we got 30 minutes. So in 30 minutes time, what are you going to say about reading related to that? So just to kind of set it up, you know, I can say this very passionately. One of the things that I'm most proud of in my time in this position is what we've done in the area of literacy. Literacy is the very foundation of all learning, and therefore it takes goes a notch up when it comes to importance. And I know the science people are gonna, probably hammer me for it, and the math people, but it really is the foundation of all learning. So one of the things that amazed me becoming superintendent is that we really had no support system in place when it came to promoting literacy across the district. Previously, we had one person in all of Clay County schools that represented reading, and that position was eliminated prior. And so when I became superintendent, I said, okay, let's talk to the literacy folks. And everyone just kind of looked at one another like, who are you talking to? Like, who are you talking about? Like, there is nobody in literacy. And through the leadership of Heather Tito and others, we said, okay, we need to really look at supports. Like, what are we doing with the very foundation of learning is the ability to read, right? So from there, several things happened over the years, but I thought I would just kind of point out to you that kind of a simplistic way of looking at reading and what makes an effective reading program is a variety of supports that have to take place. And the example that I think we can all relate to is if you were making a pie and that pie had 5 ingredients in the pie, if you take away one of those ingredients, it ain't the same pie. That might sound really simplistic, but you're going to see through the presentation how there's a strategic plan to deal with literacy in which all 5 of those ingredients are necessary in order to have success in literacy. So I don't mind saying, when you look at success in literacy, we went from in the 20s to 12 to now currently 8 in the state of Florida. That would mean that 59 other districts across the state would love to have the data that Clay County has. So when you also look at that, you cannot deny that there's room for growth. I mean, that's the beauty of assessment, is you've never reached nirvana. You're never ever there. And so you have to continually work to make things better for that. So I'm going to turn it over to Melanie first, right? And Melanie's going to kind of lead us through this, but you can see we have a bunch of other guests here, because now this is literacy in Clay County. These are all the people involved now. And they're all going to give you their best couple minutes.
Like you said, I'm Melanie McIver. I'm proud and privileged to be the supervisor of reading, and we were very excited to be invited to come today. And we have many hours that we could spend talking about literacy around people that are just as passionate about literacy as we are, but we've tried to hone it in to show some of the supports that we have in literacy currently in Clay County. So our topics that we thought we would focus on today are: what's the progression of literacy like in Clay County over the past several years? What are some of the guiding factors for decision making? What are our core literacy supports? And then what are our strategic literacy supports? So we are under the leadership of Heather Tito, and we have the team here today to introduce different aspects of literacy for each department. So we have Lorraine McDowell, who is a VPK specialist. Dana Savoy is ELA elementary specialist. Kelsey Ivy is the ELA Raise school specialist. Michelle Sato is intensive reading specialist. And Rebecca Billiot is the secondary ELA specialist. And then we have Cynthia Broadwell, our administrative support, who really keeps the back engine working so that we can all do the things that we need to do. I never know where to point. So as Mr. Brodsky spoke, in 2021-2022 is when we really, under his leadership, formed that cohesive reading department. And then this is also the year that K-2 adopted the best standards, but 3 through 12 were still under the previous standards as they were still being assessed with FSA on those standards. Then the next year, oops, I went 2 years ahead. Then the next year, K-12 adopted. Then the district literacy team started to meet to become more strategic about what are the priorities, what are the goals, and what are the needs of literacy in the district. And we also defined our multi-tiered system of support, as we are all operating in a multi-tiered system of support. Then the next year is my most exciting year, because this was my first year as the supervisor of reading. And we really, this year, really honed in on intensive reading in secondary and wanting to make it more diagnostic for students. Students were placed based on their needs, and the curriculum was there to support those needs based on that. And then here we are in this year. And we're going to go through some of our priorities for this year. So what is decision-making like for literacy in Clay County? Honestly, it starts in this room. It's really taking the priorities, the goals that we want to make as a community towards literacy. And then it always starts with this for us, our best standards. And you can tell, I mean, it's a well-loved book of information. And then what are the state statutes and administrative code requiring? Making sure that we align with that. Florida's formula for reading success, the 6 components, plus the 4 types of assessment, plus instruction at Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. This is a guideline to help us inform decisions. And of course, the science of reading. We can't talk about literacy without that these days. And I know Scarborough's Rope is not the science of reading, but it is a visual that we use because it's well known to remind us about being grounded in that. It's also part of state statute. And we can't make decisions without teachers and students.
What is the data? What are the feedback? We have surveys that go out, professional learning surveys with teachers, surveys that students answer. And that's the same that's true for families. What are families telling us? Principals share things with us all the time. SAC meetings are held, and they share what their goals are. And then we have those surveys that go home as well. Another factor for decision making is structured literacy. Now, the science of reading is the why we do things. Structured literacy is the what are we teaching, and the how are we going to teach it. So direct and systematic, master-oriented, making sure that we have the data to drive instructional choices. And really all of that is linked back to Florida's formula for reading success. You'll find all of those words in those instructional practices. So we take all of this together, and then what does it look like in the classroom? And I know we all talk about Scarborough's rope so much, but really how is it related to everything that we just talked about for decision making? Well, honestly, when you look at your standards, each of the strands of the rope is a standard. Each of those strands are also a component in the 6 components. So then we take that information along with structured literacy, and we determine what are the tools that best meet the needs for teachers for instruction and students for that instructional form of information in order to strengthen that strand. And the same is true on the language side. It is all tied to our best standards, and language is one of the components. And again, it is aligning the resources that best meet the needs of those strands. And you have to get the most effective form for that strand to really strengthen it. And like you said, this is all part of that recipe, right? So if I take any part out, if I remove the standard, or if I remove the tool, then am I really doing justice to that strand? Because the goal is to build those strands together to create that skilled learner. So that's elementary. It is still true for secondary. It is still foundational skills are tied to the standards, are tied to the tools that we choose. And this would be for intensive reading and our ELA classes. So really looking at all of those strands and what do we need and what do we have in order to strengthen those. And looking at our data to determine, are these tools working? Do we need to adjust anything? So another aspect we're very passionate about is professional learning through literacy and making sure that we have the courses required for statute. Right now, 2 of our top ones that you would hear about are micro-credentials, which is offered through UF Lassinger. It's an online platform. Last year, teachers were able to earn a $1,000 stipend for completing this online learning, and it also meets the requirement for reading 40 for recertification. And then letters, which is that 300 hours of in-depth learning that meets the reading endorsement requirements, and really it is transformational learning. You go through letters and you mourn a little bit about your first years of teaching. You're going, if I had only known this. And we have our district professional learning where we take our district initiatives and make sure that everyone has professional learning around that. This summer we were really excited to light up literacy, and we had 1 day of light up literacy from K to 12 with 15 different opportunities, and the feedback was phenomenal, and they'd like for us to continue that next year. And we can't talk about literacy without talking about family supports. I was really excited to hear all of that this morning with the family supports, because this is an area that we really need to be able to inform parents about. So family literacy nights, schools have family literacy nights, but as a district we host one that coincides with Florida's Literacy Week in January. It goes along with their theme. It's a really great time. Last year was a butterfly book, and we had butterflies running around. It was wonderful with all of the activities. We also have a read at home plan. This is for K to 5, and it really hits on each of the components of reading for every grade level, and it'll have parent information, articles, videos, and then it'll have activities for students to be able to do at home. And currently it's available on our website. It will start being pushed out for families in school newsletters, online, all of those places that would be great to hit one button and get it out to everybody. And anytime in front of anybody, I love to talk about the New Worlds Reading Initiative. It is through UF Lassinger in a partnership with the state, and Every student, VPK to 5, could qualify for a free book delivered to your house. You know how kids love to get mail, or I did as a child. I wanted to receive mail. They get a free book every month. So you just have to score a level 1 or 2 on any FAST progress monitoring. So if I'm a kindergartner coming in that first time, I have not had kindergarten yet, I take my FAST PM1, I'm not proficient, a 3 or above yet, I would qualify for the New Worlds book. Now, if I become proficient by the end of the year, I still receive the books all the way through 5th grade. And then online, they have activities and videos for families and things for the children to do at home with the books. So I love to talk about New Worlds. Sorry. So that's kind of the overview about decision making and some of the tools that we have. But what are those core supports that we have for teachers and students? And we're going to start with our youngest learners, right? They're just coming in, our VPK students. And Lorraine Dowd is going to come up and talk about VPK.
Good morning. So, our VPK program is provided at 19 elementary schools and 5 high schools. There's 32 teachers and 51 assistants. This year, the teachers are implementing the new Frog Street curriculum that was funded through a grant that I applied for through Episcopal Children's Services, and it aligns with the Florida Early Learning and Developmental Standards. VPK is also monitored by the state through a class observation tool. VPK is all about play. Students learn through play. Students are developing their oral language, their vocabulary, their critical thinking skills, problem solving, and understanding community in our schools. We also send home a lovely parent letter every week, which would also go well with the new thing they were just talking about. Next, please. Okay, this is really, I'm proud of this one. So, VPK has to take the FAST 3 times a year. At the beginning of the year, we had 64 students below the benchmark. At the end of the year, we had 11 students that were below the benchmark. So now these students are better prepared when they go into kindergarten. This is a state law that parents have to sign and agree to when they enroll their students into the VPK program. And once again, if they fall below any of the benchmarks, they get to do the New Worlds Initiative, and they can continue all the way to 5th grade. And now I'll turn it over to Dana, who's our ELA K-5 specialist.
I have a question, just because we said it out loud. Actually, how well do they do it? Like, I mean, like, do you have to help them take this test?
No, you can't. So you have to, the very first year that FAST came out for VPK, the students were required to take the test on a touch screen device. So Episcopal Children's Services gave us 2 devices per classroom. Now the state has changed it where they can either use touch screen or audio. So what the students have to do is they sit there, it tells them out loud, and they have to hit a little button. We really prefer for the students to hit the button because most students know how to play on an iPad. It's awful to say that, but they do. So that is how they do their little STAR test. They can't have any testing. Matter of fact, the state just made a requirement for our teachers to sign paperwork like 3 through 6 used to, saying you're not going to do this, this, and this. So now we have to do that, and I upload all of that information into a state portal to prove we're following the requirements.
And how great is that, to have this information, this data? I mean,
It really does help prepare us for those kids when they're getting ready to transition to kindergarten. We know where they're coming into kindergarten. So it really is, I mean, it's a different snapshot of the child.
But that's the kids who are in VPK.
Yes.
yeah.
There are so many children still who are not in VPK.
So we have other ways for those, we have kindergarten camp kickoffs and kindergarten screeners. So there's a screener, an Acadience is what we're using as a universal screener that does give you that information for where they're starting.
And you have to, I mean, before technology, people were doing this one-on-one individually testing and trying to get this data. It was a nightmare to do that.
They had paper still.
This is beautiful,
It's
this is
still-
beautiful.
It's still one-on-one in some of the grades.
Oh, yes, they do
And it's
one-on-one.
still one-on-one, and it's still a nightmare because you're dealing one-on-one with a child while the other 18 are possibly 20, depending on the school, depending on the classroom. Sorry, I'll stop.
But everybody takes fast testing now, right?
Yes, everybody does. VPK to 12th grade.
I will also add to that, Mrs. Bola, that we do add a robust support system in our VPK classrooms, that all of our VPK classrooms have 2 assistants assigned.
Right, right.
Okay. So moving into kindergarten, so this is your elementary support team. These are my coaches. So my amazing 3 coaches, we all support 28 elementary schools. So that is 932 teachers who we support. So small but mighty team. But these are our ELA initiatives for this school year. You do have a copy of this in the folder that we handed out to you. We use data to make priorities for our team, specifically on what teachers and students need for the upcoming year. These are our priorities for the year. All of our professional learning and initiatives comes from these priorities. As Melanie mentioned earlier, we do provide a lot of professional learning for our teachers during the summer. One thing that's kind of new for this year, last year we did a quarterly cohort for all of our 3rd grade teachers. There was great success from that. We had a lot of feedback from them saying that getting together and building new assessments together really had a positive impact on the learning in their classroom. So this year we're going to be doing those quarterly cohorts for kindergarten through 5th grade teachers as well. Okay, so we've updated the K through 5 curriculum guides. And we really like to look at a teacher's curriculum guide as their toolbox, right? So just as a skilled builder would go in to build a home, you're not going to want to be having to, oh wait, I forgot my saw, let me go to this place to get it, or oh wait, I forgot that. Just having everything there prepared that is adopted, that is vetted, and that is the most powerful resources that they can use. So we put those all together for teachers this year. Some of the things that we've added have been books from the best text list. We've encouraged teachers to use those in their instruction, and our team has also purchased those for teachers. So we're not saying, you should use this book. Hope you have it, you know, so purchase it for them. Some other things that we've added are books from the civics literacy list, because we know that that's very important for building that background knowledge for students to be civic minded. So yeah, it's like a one-stop shop because teachers just have way too much to do and way too many resources to sort through, so we tried to make it easier for them. This is also located in their curriculum guide. It is a resource page. And it's just as it sounds, but we've taken everything from their benchmarks. There are supports here for students in all areas of the MTSS process. So if you're Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3, teachers can go here to get resources, assessment data. We've incorporated some new benchmark snapshot cards, which you'll see in just a second, and some writing snapshot cards as well. So again, we're all about service and support for our teachers and our students, and just making that easier for them, but also making sure that they have available the correct resources that they need to be using, so it's not going out and searching for different things that might not be aligned to the science of reading or vetted. So this is one other new tool we've given teachers this year. We worked with a teacher who actually created these benchmark common visuals, K through 5. They're aligned to our benchmarks. We've also given them a learning target and success criteria as an example to use in the classroom. So this really keeps teachers and students honed in on that goal of their learning target. It also gives an opportunity for students to seek feedback from their teacher. They know exactly where the learning target is or what their learning goal is, so they'll know if they need support in getting to that. And
Did you
they're
say you
just
have that
cute.
for every standard and benchmark?
All 13
God
assessed benchmarks in kindergarten through 5th grade.
So as a 5th grade reading teacher, I could print this up and maybe make it a larger print, put it up, and then I don't have to fill in my whiteboard or whatever with everything that, oh wow.
Yes, ma'am. We tried to make it a little bit easier. We've also offered purchasing through Staples as if an administrator wanted to use, say, Title I funds or something like that, to purchase these through Staples for their whole faculty. We've had some administrators do that. We've had others. One big thing, especially in 4th and 5th grade, we've seen teachers print it in a smaller format and give it to the students to put in their journal because their learning goal is right there for them. So, and we just love the way they look too.
The success criteria, that success criteria is probably the best part. If you're a first-year teacher and you ask
we're
a
really
student that
working-
and they don't know it, you know.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
We're really working with teachers. We give them this as a starting point, right? But we work with them if they want to tweak it to directly align to the task that they're doing in their classroom. So a lot of the work we do with teachers is around that. Okay, so one other thing is a foundations page for kindergarten through 2nd grade. Again, there's so many resources out there that teachers were going all over the place. So for example, if I'm teaching short I this week, all of the adopted resources and everything that aligns to the science of reading that I need as a primary teacher to teach short I are linked right there for me. You can also go back to it and use it for small group if necessary. So just another thing to kind of lighten the load of teachers. This is the last resource I wanted to talk to you about. I think I'm over my time, I apologize. But you do have in your folder, it's something that we call the Literacy Instructional Supports and Resource. It's a big, thick packet, and I think yours is a 5th grade example, if I'm not mistaken. But we were just thinking, we have so many things that teachers need to look at to be aware of their benchmarks, stay benchmarks aligned. How can we promote that strong instruction? So we just, everything's available in their curriculum guide, but we just printed it all together like a little packet for them. Like, this is what you go to teach. This is where, you know, we're going to start with our standards. So they have those snapshot cards that I talked about if you wanted to look over those in your spare time. We give them a lesson plan template. It's not saying you have to use this, but if you need something. And we have also given them just a little brief overview of all of their anchor charts. So you do have a copy of that. That'll be printed for all kindergarten through 5th grade teachers as a resource for instruction.
I really love how it's so focused on benchmarks, because I taught reading from 4th grade up through 11, and if teachers don't do every benchmark, the gap from year to year becomes so significant, it's almost impossible to fix. And so if every teacher every year is teaching the benchmark needed to be successful in the next year, that's why this is so critical. And I appreciate the work that has gone into something like this.
Thank you. We've even included for them what was supposed to be mastered in the prior year. So it might not have been, right? So you might have to start there, start where the students are. So at least teachers would know that prior knowledge that they need, those prerequisites, before starting on what's to master in their grade band.
And this is huge change in the last few years. And there's a lot of work I can recognize went into this.
Yes. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Very impressive.
Yes.
Good morning. Just like my counterparts here, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to speak with you and kind of showcase what we're doing in 612 ELA. I'm very passionate about our students in Clay, their literacy and achieving proficiency in graduating. So this is my team. I have a team of 2 additional coaches. We support 42 schools, 214 teachers, and over 20,000 students. This is really aligns, I live by this quote, it aligns with my educational philosophy. I know you've heard a lot about intentionality today, but I believe that every student deserves a great teacher, not by chance, but by design. And that speaks to what we've been talking about here today, the intentionality of benchmark-aligned curriculum. the intentionality of showing or giving teachers resources to have in a one-stop shop where they can intentionally teach our benchmarks. So these are our priorities every year. My team sits down, we come up with what are our priorities for the year. We look at data, we talk with our teachers. We are the boots on the ground. We are in the classrooms. We are talking to the teachers. We are in there seeing instruction and supporting our teachers' needs. So we're looking at the data. We're also really focused this year on intentionally engaging students in evidence-based literacy practices and really intentionally choosing those practices to go along with our benchmarks. All right, so as we've talked a little bit about the FAST, I am really proud of this data. So for 22-23, we've got our 13 benchmarks here. And that was our first year of the FAST assessment for our 6-10 students and for all students. But you can see we had at the end of our 22-23 year, we had 20 benchmarks across 6-10 that were either at, near, or below the grade level standard. And I'm proud to say that we have flipped many of these to green this past year in 23-24. We reduced that number to 11, but our work is not done. Rocky said we will not be satisfied. So as you can see, I circled right here, we've got our reading across genres and vocabulary category. We've got morphology, context, and connotation that really work in conjunction with interpreting figurative language. So this is the data that we use and talked with our district literacy team that we really need some more supports in vocabulary. And so one of the ways was through vocabulary.com and giving students extra practice with vocabulary. But that's not all that we're doing is using vocabulary.com. We are going to be launching that this year to give students the opportunity to practice. But our vocabulary is taught in context, and the context of the text that we are teaching. So I wanted to share with what we are doing, what we are training, and that explicit vocabulary routine is in your folders. This is what we're training our secondary students, our secondary teachers to do, is to use this routine, carefully selecting words in context to be taught, and going through this 4-step routine. So we launched this in July, and then we are repeating this training several times this semester so that all of our 6-12 teachers have the opportunity to get this training. And one thing that you'll see in here is in step 2, guiding students in analyzing the meaningful parts of the word. So that morphology benchmark. So right here, we are really intentionally working on lifting that. And as Melanie mentioned, we just live by our best benchmarks book. So we've got lists in here that give us a starting point for that morphology, but it's not the only place that we go to teach morphology. So we are really intentional about lifting that vocabulary area. All right, I wanted you guys to see what students have to do. Where do we get this data? This is what students have to be able to perform on benchmarks. So that we get the data. So these questions are challenging for our 6-10 students, but I'm going to show you in a minute. They are performing and they're outperforming the state. So they have a variety of different ways that they're assessed. It can be through these charts, it can be through these 2-part questions. So this first question, select 2 universal themes that are developed throughout the poem, and then how does the author develop themes in part A. So a student would need to get 3 answers correct to get 1 point. Okay? So
The infamous part B.
the part B. Yeah.
Teachers sit around sometimes and talk about what one of those are right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we are very transparent. I've had the opportunity to serve on state committees, so I am very knowledgeable about the FAST assessment, and I bring that back to the teachers and share with the teachers what I am allowed to share on the FAST assessment. So our teachers are very well trained right now in understanding the different ways that our students are assessed. I put a vocabulary example here as well, but it's not the only way. Here's a couple more. How does an omniscient narrator develop irony in the passage? So this isn't what color is Mr. Broski's shirt. They are very, these are very complex questions that are All right. So that's where the data comes from when we're looking at level 1s, 2s, 3s. That's how they have to perform. So how do we meet the benchmarks? How do our 612 ELA teachers? All of our curricular guides are designed in the same way, and just as is for elementary, it's a one-stop shop. We've got text resource folders. We have the benchmarks that are explicitly taught each quarter. We have our best book list texts that are embedded into the curriculum. We have civics literacy texts that are embedded. So in the 7th grade example here, they're doing a Susan B. Anthony speech. We have a writing focus each quarter, whole group text. We have reteach and practice. And then, of course, we have the vocabulary words that are to be taught in context. All right, so how are our students performing in clay? So in 6th grade, we are outperforming the state in proficiency by 11%. In 7th grade, 7%. 8th grade, 8%. 9th grade, 9%. And 10th grade, 10%. And this past year, we increased proficiency in all of our grade levels. And as I stated, outperforming the state very well in proficiency. All right, so turn it back to Melanie.
So those are kind of our core supports that we have happening right now. And it has been very transformational trying to make sure that we keep all the parts of the recipe and we put it someplace where you can actually find it, right? So when we look at the data, we also know that there are needs for strategic supports. Not all schools are performing where, we would want them all to be. So being able to be strategic in what we offer those schools or those students or those teachers when we look at the data to determine that is something that's very important to us. And that's why we have the positions that were added last year with Kelsey Ivy for Ray's schools and Michelle Sato for that intensive reading. Those are those strategic supports that we have to make sure that we layer in. So I'm going to have Kelsey come up to share with you some of those strategic supports.
Thank you. Bring my owl with me. Yes. Right, so good morning. My name is Kelsey Ivy, and I am our K-5 elementary grade school specialist going into year 2 of this work. So as we begin to discuss Tier 2 supports for our schools, I give that additional layer of support to our schools designated by the Florida Department of Education as our Reading Achievement Initiative of Scholastic Excellence, so our RAISE schools. So as Melanie mentioned, after carefully looking at data and trends, we determined some of our RAISE schools needed not an additional tool, but a different tool to support our learners at the most foundational level. And for those schools, that tool has been Foundations, a structured literacy approach to those foundational skills where learning how to read truly begins. So these images, I'm super proud of this, these images are our Clay County students from the past year and paint a picture of what literacy looks like within these schools using Foundations. We are truly changing the face of literacy within Clay as we speak, and I'm honored to help support lead that work. So Melanie also mentioned the importance of structured literacy. So what does that look like? It's multi-sensory. So these students, right up here, they're first skywriting their high-frequency words. These students are working with a partner to form the digraph CK. And another student over here is marking their words to map those rules for spelling for long-term memory. And then, of course, we're putting it all together with decodables. And you have those decodables, an example of one of those are like the training wheels of reading that give kids the confidence to apply those skills and those learning or those reading patterns into a book that they can read. And so all of our RAISE schools this past year have received a classroom set of decodables. one of my most favorite strategies that Foundations has equipped our students with is called the Wilson tapping technique. And as a teacher, my go-to with struggling students was always sound it out. However, even more powerful is what our teachers are saying right now, tap it out. So each sound in a word gets a tap, adding in, again, that multisensory technique. So can I demonstrate it with you guys now? Okay. All right, so this is Echo, and so when I hold up Echo, this comes with Foundations, I'd like you to tap it with me. So we're gonna tap the word map. So watch me first. App, map. Your turn.
App,
Map. Perfect. Much better than just saying the words. You added that multi-sensory piece to it. Very good. You guys are ready for first grade. So the best part is our students are independently applying this strategy outside of quote-unquote Foundations time. So these students were caught tapping it out during independent reading time and working with a teacher one-on-one. And although these moves, like the letter tiles that we saw on the first slide, and the tapping and that multi-sensory piece, they're all embedded within the Foundations curriculum. They can be used with any curriculum. And we're excited to share with all teachers across Clay some of these strategies to use with their learners during our quarterly cohorts. So Foundations looks nice and it sounds nice, but how did these schools implementing Foundations compare across the district last year? So just a quick snapshot, 2 of our 4 schools specifically chosen to implement Foundations scored within the top 4 of our district on the Kindergarten Star Assessment last year. So again, those were 2 of our schools that were specifically chosen. And when introducing a new curriculum, sometimes we expect what's called that curriculum or implementation dip. We expect scores to fall the first year as teachers and students are navigating a new curriculum. But at our 2 most targeted schools, that could not have been farther from the truth. And these gains at Charles E. Bennett and Grove Park Elementary just proved how much of a difference equipping students with the right tools can be.
wow. 29%.
Yeah. So I want to end on a personal note, and I feel like I can do that since we all tapped it out together. So I'm a parent of a Clay County kindergartner, and we were at a private school for our preschool years. And while nothing is cuter than a 5-year-old in a uniform, I truly believed our school district was the best place for her to learn how to read. I have a vested interest in the work that we are doing. My heart is in what we are doing because my whole heart, my little girl, goes to school within our district. So thank you for your time and for your support of literacy.
Now that we're all in a little I don't want to follow her. I'm Michelle Sato, and I was one of the people who Mrs. Tito brought on board to this literacy team, and I am thrilled to be a part of such a passionate, knowledgeable team. And there was work that was put into place before I came on board that helped our secondary students do a fantastic job this past year. If you see this graphic, when you get a copy of this slide deck, you'll be able to click into this and see the detailed planning, intentional detailed planning that went behind that. But what this shows you is we have corrective reading decoding we're using with our students. Just a little bit of background on that. They are placement tested before they go into any of these. So every one of our intensive reading students last year was placement tested by someone like me or a reading teacher who knows what they're doing, and that was beautiful. So they all got to where they needed to be. Level A works really well if they know nothing really about language, and so we had a lot of our English language learners use that. But most of our students fell within this band where And you can see, I won't take up your time, but you can see later if you care to, the different profiles that are addressed here. So we had our students moving through this. B1 takes 1 semester. When they finish that and graduate or matriculate to the next level, they move into B2, and then that's another semester. And then when they move into decoding C, this is where they're going to start getting some more comprehension strategies, and it gets them ready to the point where they would be on a 5th to 7th grade level. Now, I taught high school reading, and I had a lot of kids who were on a 2nd or 3rd grade reading level. So, yeah, what do I do with that? Now, I have this great program, and that's thanks to people who came before me. And you'll see in a minute how that has really, really worked, and it moves them up 2 to 3 grade levels in 1 year. So we are moving the dial, and that's why we are, at Clay County, standing out in Florida as this work that's been put.
So are you scheduling around this?
Yes.
Intentionally scheduling?
100%, yes ma'am.
How brilliant is that?
Yeah.
They're not just placed in classrooms by
for the board,
grade level.
we used to just put intensive reading kids into like a section,
One group.
not by need. So that's incredible.
Yeah. So then just to kind of finish up the track, this step is what I like to call our Lexia Power Up and then Morphology study. Remember we had spelling through morphographs, which is a wonderful piece to this program, but when we were adding the vocabulary.com that you all agreed to last time we talked, that now it amps up the rigor for them so that when they are matriculating out of decoding and they're moving into this, Lexia does a diagnostic piece again. So now we know where are those little gaps that might still remain, what didn't they get the first time. So Lexia will work on closing that, and then this morphograph will give them that background knowledge, all those things that Rebecca really focused in on with our data. So we're working together as a team. You know, I'm secondary reading, Rebecca's secondary ELA. We work hand in hand so that we all come together and give our kids everything that they need. This is talking about learning. We want our teachers to learn everything that they can so that they can be better teachers of how children learn to read. I was very vulnerable with you when I stood before you the last time, and I didn't know all these things. I didn't know what I didn't know. And since being in this position, I've been afforded the opportunity to learn so much about what it takes for us to learn to read, and now I'm passing that on to our reading teachers. So I have about 58 reading teachers, and they're learning all these things, and it's changing their mindset because they're kind of in a place where they didn't know all the things either, right? So the more that I learn, I can get to them, then they are seeing that data and they're like, yeah, I believe in this, and they want to know all the things that we can know. This is just a piece of what I've done with our intensive reading teachers when this is our portable, Lorraine and I work at Portable 9 in Middleburg High School. This is our bulletin board, and this is Scarborough's rope that Melanie referenced before. Each strand has to come together to get to reading comprehension. So the blue pieces are the word recognition that you get out of that decoding that you saw on the previous slide, and the red pieces are language comprehension. So that's where we work with the Lexia, the vocabulary.com, etc. What the teachers did is they took a lesson right out of decoding C. This was out of decoding C. They had red flags and blue flags. The red flags, they worked as shoulder partners to say, okay, well, where does this come from, the rope? And as they worked through the lesson, every single strand is represented by a red or a blue flag in the lesson. So every lesson that they get every day addresses each strand on the reading rope. That is huge, not only for our children, but our teachers to know that what we're doing, although it's scripted and it may sound like very basic, that's exactly what our students need. And so that's an eye-opening moment for them. And then you see this purple flag right here, and you're kind of like, well, Michelle, that's not red or blue. Well, we know when we mix red and blue together, we get purple. And so in our little cadre, there's a new word for us, we are going for the purple this year. We want to get them to comprehension. So that represents fluency and comprehension and everything that we want for our students. So this is my last moment with you. I just want to say that in 6 to 12 intensive reading, we're going for the purple. We're closing gaps for students and we're moving towards proficient literacy. What we did in this past year is we took level 1s in 7 through 10. They decreased on an average of 10%. We reduced our level 1s by 10% in 1 year. Those are kids who are now getting words off the pages. Gives me chills. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
So like we say, that is our goal, the closing of the gaps. We just want to end with, this is where we are currently in literacy and Clay. And really, we're never there. We never reach nirvana. We're never, we're always striving for what's the next. Because honestly, no one says it better than Dr. Seuss. The more you read, the more you'll know. The more you learn, the more places you'll go. I probably messed that up. But really, that is the goal for all of us, is we want to make literacy for everyone, because that's what opens doors. Building the literate citizens, that's what creates opportunities for all, and that is what our passion is as your literacy department. There were so many things that we left out of this, so we would love to talk to you anytime about literacy.
Come on, I have one question.
Absolutely.
Do you remember when we started SIPs?
Yes.
First kindergarten, then we moved to K1, then we bought whatever, I did kindergarten. Whatever came after that was like second grade.
K to 2.
In some schools, I think it went on to 4th grade. There was supposed to be a residual effect. So like if you started in kindergarten, each year you started closing gaps, right? And so a kid who starts in kindergarten goes to 12th. I'm hoping that with this exceptional design plan, that you carry it for so many years, that those results pick up every year and you have less and less struggle. So if we can stay consistently with something that's working, I've been around long enough to see a gazillion things go in and a gazillion things go out. But I feel like this is, yes, I don't like pendulum swinging.
Nope.
I feel like this is actually the path we needed all along. So I just wanted to tell you that.
I appreciate that, and that is our goal, is to be very diagnostic in what a student needs and not just go one layer of, okay, that's going to fix everything for that layer of student. It's really not. Every student is different, and being very diagnostic in that and understanding that the instructional practices that you use with those students matter. The tools that you use matter.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, absolutely. So we're always available.
Okay, so let me try to bring it home. First of all, I want to thank the team. They were really I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the couple things that I wanted to emphasize in the presentation. I'm ready for the 2 days if you guys are up for it. So I'm good to go. The challenge really is, the thing I want to emphasize is that there's good people that are strategically making decisions related to reading instruction. Those are the people that you saw today. And I also emphasize that those strategies need to happen, right? So when I was talking about building a pie or baking a pie, the people involved, right? I can't imagine our progress in reading if we didn't invest in having some of those supports to make that happen. All of those things you saw would not be happening in Clay County schools if we chose to not invest in that. So they always say the old adage is you have to spend money to make money. But yeah, you're going to have to spend money, but there's nothing more worth spending money on than those things that were just mentioned to you, because it leads ultimately to the success of students. Another little takeaway from that was, the science of reading. They talk about the science of reading, but there's also kind of a science or a prescription to how to strategically engage in a plan that will be productive over time. That takes a couple of years to build, and I kind of feel like we're at almost that peak time frame once you've implemented something. It's taken 3 years to get there, right? But now we're at that point. So much so that you see statistically, we're 8th in the state, 5th when you get to the upper levels, which is amazing as a high school principal, I can just tell you. You know, going to see that, which is amazing. So much so, we've been recognized by FCRR, which is the Florida Center for Reading Research. I'm actually, believe it or not, giving a presentation on the 27th of September for the rest of the state related to reading research, and the practices in Clay County. I'm extremely proud of the work that that team has done. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not more work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done. You can see that statistically. We're on the right path. This is a great team. They did a great job presenting today. A lot more complicated. That was the easy version. But they tried to give it to you in less than an hour, so pretty impressive. So thank you. Thank you so much for what you guys did. Any other reading comments? Yeah, I'm going to speed things up. The strategic plan. Right? Each year, we formed our strategic plan. There's 5 goals in it. We spent a year doing this to go with our 5 strategic goals. Each year, you update that. So we're at the end of year one of the 5 strategic goals. Inside the booklet is an update. Why don't we just look through it real quick, just so you can see the format of it. You can see once you get to goal 1, some good pictures there. You guys are looking good. And then you can see goal 1, and then on the back, it gives you a points of progress, how we're doing on that goal. So one of the things you should do in good strategic goal planning is you should have metrics of success, like how are you measuring this, and then what progress points have you had. So I'm not going to take the time to read this to you, but you can see that we made progress on every single one of those goals. And that's what really guides the work. Like the presentation that you first saw on family and community engagement was designed right after we formed the strategic plan. So, okay, what are we going to do about this? 9 months of research to get us to the point where you saw that today. So there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes. I'm not going to bore you with going over every single goal, but I think you understand the point. So each year, at the next summer, you'll get year 2, like where are we on this as we form our 5 strategic goals.
Just a quick comment on that, Mr. Brodsky. When I remembered on goal 2, the retention of qualified teachers and the opportunity to train teachers. And with the number of teachers that we're getting in that are new, that are not necessarily graduating from education programs, the work that was just exhibited to us is crucial.
So
Being able to go into a program and have all of the standards, I mean, yeah, you could go online and say, okay, here are the standards, I'm going to pull them from this one, and I'm going to pull some ideas from books from this one, and I'm going to pull some ideas from this one. And to have it all right there is a phenomenal step to helping our teachers at any level.
So
And
I'm not
it's a
sure.
better service to our students.
I'm not sure if the board recognizes this, but there's so many, where you guys know this, there's so many forms of communication, right? There's so much information out there that if I'm a teacher and I'm left to my own resources to go out there and look, you will pick something inevitably that is not aligned to the curriculum.
That's right.
And you're actually probably doing more harm, I would make the argument. You're doing more harm than good. So here we are, we give you a map and we say, all you have to do is follow this map.
So no more teachers pay teachers, is that what you're
I've said that
They
for
still make
years.
bulletin boards.
I said that for years, but I think a few slipped through the cracks here and there.
Yes, absolutely.
I can't guarantee it, okay? All right, so on to the board agenda, and I'm going to go really quickly through this and only highlight a couple that I think you'll be interested in. One is D3 is the public hearing to advertise the safety and security policies. So just a reminder to the board, we adopted an emergency policy last time, but we also advertised last time. Now this makes it official, but I'll give you one caveat. As we're working through the year-long progress for Neola this will be rewritten again, right? So emergency policy put us in instant compliance. We advertised at the same time. Now this takes us, because under an emergency policy, you have to adopt another policy within 90 days by statute. This puts us in compliance for that, but this will be rewritten again as we go through Neola, okay? So just a little point of clarification there, and that puts us in compliance. The minutes, I don't believe there's any questions on that. There's a contract extension with the Douglas Law Firm. You know that one of the things we're doing is our Truancy program, and we're excited to get that up and going. Attendance itself is a whole thing, right? So here's a little bit of statistics. There's 6,000 students that had 18 or more days absent last year, 6,000. Of the six, but that's both excused and unexcused, right? We do have students that are ill, right? So that's an excused absence. So my 18 plus, the statute says unexcused absences, right? So there is a whole series of mechanisms to whittle that down to the truly deserving of truancy being involved. So we're thankful for the Douglas Law Firm and the work being done there, and that's what that item is for. Community relations and IT solutions, that's the presentation that you just saw this morning. The personnel consent agenda. Kelly Services, that's a pricing clarification for long-term subs for self-contained classrooms. We have a long-term sub for a self-contained classroom. Proud of this. How about this? We have tentatively agreed to the ratification of our CCA contract last night. Yeah, that's a major thing. And so much so that I think the first session, Ms. Troutman, was almost to midnight. The text was 11:45. So I don't know what time you guys.
We actually started in May, but yes, the 22nd was a long one.
Yeah, to midnight.
I commend both sides because I have been complaining about this going to December thing for many, many years. And I have to give some, commending that we're talking like that in August. So
Thank you. A lot of work went into it. We're extremely proud. The board should be extremely proud. This is one of the highest compensation packages in district history. That's a fact.
Can you repeat
That's one of the highest,
don't say it.
one of the highest compensation packages in history. And also does what the board wanted to do, which was to recognize the contributions of our veteran teachers. So a lot of kudos to be given to both CCA's team and the district team for that. You know, it's going to be the contract itself will be on the board agenda for the board to approve. I think CCA is looking to do their ratification vote on September 17th, is my understanding, what my note says here. And again, couldn't be more proud of the district effort. The district also, picked up the insurance tab so that employees wouldn't have to do that. That's huge related to that.
And I also wanted to say, Mr. Brodsky, that I know I've been on the board 2 years, but not going back in the past, but the deficit that was created was not only ridiculous, but huge. You can't make that up in 1 year, and I'm proud of this board for recognizing that if we keep at it 5 years from now, we'll be in a really pretty place, so.
Yeah, you can't overcome the deficit in such a short period of time. So the total amount, not that I keep track of this, but the 3-year total is 44 million additional for compensation for all 3 employee groups, plus the additional here. And of course, we're still bargaining with our CESPA unit now, so I really can't talk about it publicly. But it would be the highest 4 years ever in the history of Clay County Schools, and so I'm very, very proud of that, very, very protective of our employees, because really we're in people business, and people really make Clay County Schools. We should always strive to honor the work of our employees, and I know this board feels the same way, and so very, very proud of that. And that doesn't mean there's a money tree out back, folks. Dr. Gutko will tell you the money tree's been shoved as much as it can be. Right? So, but I would also add to this,
It's not growing anymore.
to give docs some kudos, there's a lot of financial management that happens behind the scenes to have the ability to do that, right? So, what I would ask for the board is consideration in the decision-making process in which we vote on items such as curriculum pieces and all of that. Don't think for a second that all of that isn't factored into the big picture of Clay County Schools, and we're bringing forth what we believe to be best for students, I hate to say this because of the adults in the room. Students are the first priority in what we do in Clay County Schools, but we recognize that teachers are the vehicles by which that happens and our other employees that are related to that. So the board should take a victory lap, and so should everyone else, because we've done better in this time frame than any other 4-year period in the history of Clay County Schools since 1857. So you should really celebrate that. So enough grandstanding on that one. Okay, so the next one is a revision to the CERT plan, and essentially we were missing the amount of funding that actually went to our charter schools. So you can see on the one piece of paper, you can see that is $444,000 there, and the sum of the total in there. That's the only change
Is that
to the CERT.
the money we have to, that we are by law required to give to charter schools?
Yes.
So that's just an update of what we needed to be doing?
Yes.
Okay.
We were already doing that, but on the document submitted, it wasn't on there.
Okay, all right, that's my only question.
Okay, next is kind of fun. See these two big binders here? These are school improvement plans. I'm gonna make this as quick as possible. So by state statute, you only have to do, and maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, because everybody's listening out there, but only schools that meet certain criteria are required by statute to do a school improvement plan. Every school in Clay County does a school improvement plan. It's an important part of what you do, right? So I know we spend some time talking about the successes of Clay County School. The real work, the meat and potatoes of improvement occurs through these plans. So some of the things that you probably didn't realize, I would encourage the board to maybe just look at one. Right? I don't expect you to read 1,200 pages. Look at one to see the format of it, because in it, you'll see the goals, their educational goals in both math and reading, as well as cultural goals like school culture and climate. You'll also see early warning signs, how many students meet those criteria that would lead to potential non-success in schools. And then what does the district do about that? That's a whole nother couple days of MTSS and how that all works. But there is a system in place to make those improvements. So every school, every charter school, every DJJ school in Clay County, everyone does one, and that's just kind of the way you do things in Clay. We believe it's important.
And they're really a great time to put together. Can't miss that part.
I'm not going there. Okay, the next one is overnight travel. The assessment calendar is pretty standard. The affiliation agreement with St. Petersburg College for interns. Our clinical faculty agreement with UNF. I don't know if you realize that used to be called Sprint teachers. We pay half of the salaries, the university pays the half. It's a great relationship that we have with UNF as a partner in this process. Next is Baker Health, which is a dentistry program for students, the renewal of that contract. Next is our Flagler Health. They added a website link as a reference for parents, and then we had to bring the contract back because they added that. The only thing this does is increase communication with those people that need services. And so that's why that's on the agenda. Then there's the Walden University School of Counseling, our interns there. Next is an interagency agreement regarding truancy. So this kind of spells out what DJJ, DCF, and School Board of Clay County. It's the same agreement that all in this area. We've seen a lot of robust work from DJJ, and Eric Hall is the new chancellor of that, and we're seeing a lot of collaboration with that. So when you look at truancy and DJJ, it's all interconnected, and so part of that is we agree to share information between those three agencies in order to coordinate services for students, kind of thing. You're going to see the same contract in every Northeast Florida county within our circuit, so to speak.
Mr. Broski, as we're going through this process, is it possible for us to be looking at the truancy policies at the same time?
Sure. I mean, I think we're going to do that through the Neola policy there.
Well, I don't know, we haven't had any meetings since the first one, so I didn't know when that,
We can certainly provide it.
and what batch that one was gonna be in.
Yeah, we're meeting with them tomorrow. The whole point that I was kind of making about truancy now is we've had 2 meetings with the court system in Clay County. We're very excited. Judge Forbes is going to be our judge. Judge Green is very, very, very supportive, of bringing the process back. What the court wanted from the school system, meaning the district folks, would be a way of screening truly the players from the pretenders, right? If you have 6,000 people that are absent 18 or more days, the first step we took was every one of them got a letter from me this summer with my name on it, and I heard all kinds of reasons and rationales, and all kinds of emails and phone calls, and got some love mail and some all kinds of things happen when you send out 6,000 letters. You never know what you're going to get, right, from people. But one of the things that has to happen is you need to call attention to this. Sometimes by just telling people, hey, did you know everybody should go to school? Like, that's a thing. What that does is that takes from the 6,000, it takes the people that are on the fence that maybe just weren't really paying attention to it, into the importance of that. So maybe the family cruise can occur on spring break and not during the middle of the school year, because going to school is important. I can say that as superintendent, right? So a lot of great conversation is had. The other part of this is that school should be a place where kids want to go, right? That's a thing too, right? So we're working on it from multiple angles. Truancy is the last-ditch effort for those that don't comply, right? So we're doing everything we can to remove barriers, get them to school, make it the kind of place where people want to go, keeping parents informed. But if you don't do all of those things, and we have a 3-tier process that we go through, then it goes to truancy. So that's kind of where we are with that. Next, we have proposed allocation changes. Then you have, we're required by statute to do the superintendent's annual financial report, annual cost report, another item. It's followed by budget amendments. These are pretty routine business affair items. Deletion of items report. Then you have the bid awarding for ground maintenance and landscaping services. This is a change in companies from previous years related to this service.
So I got a question on that.
Yes, ma'am.
I
That's why I was looking at you.
I know.
Okay.
Are the principals going to have to cut their own grass in between this still?
So what we, yes, I believe it's Bryce over there.
Yes, it's already.
Bryce, is it still 2 a month?
With an option for elementary, because they don't have as many custodians on their property, to have an additional month, if they would like to have them come back out in between.
So I guess my question would be, what, is that the only difference between this company and us? Because it was a universal complaint across the board, elementary, high school, with the companies in the past. So I just, because they would complain that they'd have to constant, where they'd come out and then they'd have to literally redo everything that they did, or touch the
Well,
stuff
and,
that
yeah, and
they
this
did.
is a new company, so we have the ability to set, new expectations and new guidelines hopefully to help them serve us better. Now, there are sections within the bid that if they do want additional services above and beyond, they do offer landscaping, businesses can opt in to pay for additional if they do want to do something else.
I think too, I think privilege feels important. I think we've had conversations. I've certainly spoken to the principal. In fact, it's kind of interesting. I've had more people talk to me about cutting the lawn recently than I've had ever in my career. So I think sometimes paying more attention to it, realizing that that's important, creates more angst or more effort put into that. So we recognize that. It's a new company, so we'll see what happens.
And I assume, being a new company, that we've got performance policy in there and all that stuff.
Yep.
One of the things also with grass cutting that I have learned over the years, because, oh my gosh, we used to get all sorts of complaints. I had a guy who used to call and say, the grass around this pond at this school is now encroaching on my yard, and I haven't gotten any calls from him in at least, seriously, the last 3 years. I almost called him to find out if he was still around. But with the last company, they had a special robot mower that could literally mow around a pond. But one of the things that I also learned through all of this, though, is that we do have rain. And boy, oh boy, those big grass mowers get stuck in the mud, make divots, can get screwed up. And when you've got a schedule of, okay, we're going to do this quadrant of Clay County schools, and you have 2 days of rain, or you cut in the morning and in the afternoon you're in the middle of a lightning storm, that grass doesn't get cut sometimes for another week. And that is ugly. And we've been hearing about it for years.
Right, and part of that, right before school started, we had the hurricane.
Yep.
Right, that came through and rained, which set the mow company behind, right? And so they're having to catch up. They'll go to the site, they'll start to mow, and they'll say, oh, it's too wet right here. They mow around and do as much as they can, but, it doesn't look that great, but they're doing what they can.
I can tell you, I live on a 6-acre farm. 4 different kinds of mowing apparatuses, big tractors, small tractors, small mowers, 5 kinds of weed eaters. Grass is a fickle thing. And sometimes my own grass gets to be that tall because it's too wet. So,
I get that. We've got little kids that play around little areas and they're next to ponds, and you have teachers getting out there with weed eaters and making sure that the pre-K4 kids aren't getting eat up by snakes and stuff like that, so they can see. I just want to make sure that we got the people, if we're going to pay somebody to do the job, we're just making sure we follow up and get their jobs done. So that's not another thing that we're asking teachers and principals to do, because I mean, they do it.
I will
They
say
got their own
this.
yards, but it's like
So I would say this, as a principal, I can tell you that even if there was a company that was doing it, it's still my campus, and there's going to be we're going to put some sweat equity into it. I don't care who else is involved. I'm going to make that happen.
That's right.
Okay, next we have the Florida Safe Schools Assessment Acceptance Letter. This is just a letter by me saying that we're going to do the meeting that we're going to have after this related to FSAT, as well as it's going to be brought to a public meeting at the school board meeting, also about our FSATs. So the change order for S. Brian Jennings fire alarm, you can tell we're working on that. Charles E. Bennett security lighting. Ops is really busy this time of year. Doctor's Inlet security lighting. There's also the Clay High School parking lot, which by the way looks magnificent. When we got through there, it's quite the improvement. Substantial completion of their parking lot and redesign. Middleburg High School restroom renovations. There's the gym in Clay High is another project being worked on.
And it looks beautiful.
Yes, very nice. Pre-qualification of contractors, Lakeside Elementary school restroom renovations, Lakeside Junior High restroom and locker room renovations. So this is all part of the half-cent sales tax as well as other funding sources. Orange Park Elementary, school restroom and renovations there. By the way, I think, was it 95 years old? Orange Park Elementary?
It is 1927?
Yes.
Is that right, 1927?
Yep.
So we're coming on
Yeah, so-
97 years old.
Yeah, there's.
My husband's 80-year-old uncle went there.
So yeah, I don't know about you guys, as things get, stuff breaks down, stuff needs to be repaired, it happens to all of us. Next is the spot survey for Rollout Elementary and future expansion there. Ridgeview High's air conditioning, Middleburg High's single key initiative, Wilkinson Junior High fire alarm replacement, HVAC and windows at Green Cove. You can see the ops is really busy trying to renovate our buildings and get them up to snow. So
You're
that
doing a
takes
great
care of
job.
the agenda.
Fast forward agenda.
So, our next item, questions from the audience, we have none. Mr. Broski, is there anything further you wanted to add?
I do, I get two items actually. Board member asked for an update on book appeal, book policy related to appeals. And so we put together a little 5-minute, like where we're at with that. Mr. Daly. I said, out of the wings. Out of the wings. Can you give us a brief update on book challenges, appeals, and
Sure,
process?
yeah, most of the stuff you've all heard before, it seems like many times, not much has changed, but there are some updates that may be pertinent that you may find interesting. Mrs. Honora, would you mind going to the next slide? So we had moved, as you are aware, the access to the library media materials for parents onto one page, and the response has been immense, it's been tremendous, it's been overwhelmingly, well, to my knowledge, exclusively positive. Mrs. Honora, if you go to the next slide, please. Just as a brief recap, what are the levels of access? You have seen this several times, it has not changed. So the general, unlimited, limited, no access, and the daily emails. You'll remember Mrs. Collins presented that part back in the spring. And so at this point, when the last time we spoke about it, we didn't know what the numbers were going to be. This next slide will give you some interesting data points. There's two of them. This was as of August 8th. I'm going to give you the latest one in the next slide. And you can take a look. It's broken down by grade level. And so I put the percentages there of at that point it was 22,000 respondents. On the next slide, if you will, please, we're up to 28,000 respondents, which is pushing close to 80% of parents have made a decision relative to the access. And what I'd like to point out to you really is that and I put this bullet at the bottom, 99% of Clay County's parents have selected unlimited or general. 66 or 65, 64, whatever it's been fluctuating those numbers throughout as I've been monitoring it, have chosen unlimited. In other words, I think what they're saying is, thank you very much for your concern, but we don't need any community members or members of this organization to tell them how to parent their children. That they are fully capable of doing that on their own with conversations around their family's values. So that would include, I would imagine, and I'm just saying this from my wife and I, because I have a high school student too, is there are books that we don't want him to read, there's movies we don't want him to see, there's music we don't want him to listen to, there's conversations we don't want him to partake in the bus cafeteria locker room. But we know we can't wrap him in bubble wrap and send him out in the world that way, so we have to have conversations. It's called parenting. And as a long-time member of the Clay County community, I came to Clay County to raise my children here. My wife was raised here, and I've worked with thousands of students and parents over the many years. And Clay County parents know how to parent their children. And here, that's what I think they are saying. 99% have elected to go with what we're offering. And again, 64% saying they're okay. They'll have the conversations. They'll guide their children on this. So I think that is I've never seen a data point like that. That's as a resounding, a landslide, shouting from the rooftops, we got this, thank you. I will say they are appreciative, and very much so, of the opportunity to weigh in and select these for yourself. So I credit the board and your wisdom for bringing this forward to empower parents. I said last time in last month's meeting, no district in the United States of America has done more to turn over parent choice to the parents than this district has. That's a fact. And I challenge anyone to find someone else who's done as much, and I hope we can be the model for other districts in empowering parents. But here are the parents that decided what they want to do, and they show a level of comfort. I still have some concerns around how we get into purchasing at the high school level to make it congruent with policy and statute, but we can have that discussion as we go along. With elementary and junior high, I feel much more comfortable, completely comfortable in elementary. So that's the update. We'll continue to update that. I'd like to push toward 100%. It's hard to get that with everyone, but this is a massive sample size. And so we hear monthly from a few folks that have a very different view on this. But there's 225,000 or so people in Clay County, and the people that we serve see this resoundingly in this manner.
Mr. Daly, can you explain the difference real quick between general and unlimited?
Sure. Unlimited means you can get anything. So the books that were flagged, you can walk in.
The ones in the young adult or advisory
Parental
section?
advisory section.
So unlimited means all of the books,
You get
right?
anything you want.
And then general means?
Everything but that you'd have to get current permission.
But the one little section?
Yes, ma'am. So, and then, you can see here.
So parents were making choices. I mean, they were.
Yeah, and obviously the people that see this differently are loud. And they put stuff in your inbox, and in my inbox, and in the governor's inbox, and in the Pope's inbox, and all that kind of stuff. But these are our parents. These people don't show up at board meetings because they're satisfied with what's going on. And there's a lot of them. I mean, that fill up a small stadium, right? And so they have said this is what we do because they were well informed on this at this point. And it's not a secret, it's out there. We made it very transparent. You've asked for that. We've delivered. I'm not a math guy. I don't know what that .002, but it's like 1 in thousands is what that number is. And so there are, you know what, and for these folks that have reservations, I'm proud that we've been able to provide them the option to do their parenting in their way. It's not how I do my parenting, but I respect their right to be a parent in that way. And at this point, we really don't require a single individual or small group of individuals to superimpose their parenting styles and values on others. This provides everyone to choose the path that suits them the best.
But it's pretty impressive. I mean, we have 8,380 parents who said, I have faith in your library, I just don't want them going to the few books over in that section.
Right.
They clearly understood the difference and made choices based on that difference. And I am actually surprised at how many parents actually really delved into that and made those decisions for their kids.
Yeah, I would say that I feel, and I'm glad we're at this point, but I feel like Clay County parents have always been, generally fans. I mean, this is a great place to raise children. It's a great place to send your children to school. And our families know how to raise their children, and they raise respectful children, generally speaking, right? Who become contributing citizens. They're patriotic. They're good people. That's why we live here. That's why all of us live here. And for that reason more than any other. Otherwise, I'd live somewhere else, and so would many of you. And so, yeah, this doesn't surprise me at all. I think that, and I don't read this as, hey, I want my kid to go in and read every book. I read it as, just like, you would hear a song on the radio or a movie coming out. Are we gonna go see that movie? What's the rating? What's on, I just think that's parenting. I'm involved, I'm looking at it. We're having conversations about what's appropriate for our children and what's appropriate for other children. And I have served different communities over the course of my career where pockets of the community see parenting differently than my wife and I do. And I had to learn that, okay, that doesn't mean they're a bad parent. I wouldn't do it that way, but we're coming from different places. And so this allows them, remember, these aren't books that are foisted on anybody. Right? No one is compulsory in terms of having to look at these books. These are for kids to go and check out if they so choose to do so. And then parents have the opportunity to elect for the daily email and all of those things. So this is going swimmingly. I credit the board. for getting that done. I thank Dr. Johnson and Susie Gannon and our librarians for their leadership on this as well. But we have a little bit more, if we can go to the next one, Ms. Lenore, I appreciate it. We can go through this. Just as a quick review, we had a board member request to look at this again. This is the graphic, but it might be easier for me to just explain on the bullet points for the sake of time. The next slide, please. You guys can go back and look at that if you'd like. So the challenge comes in, and we look at it right away, and we sit down to determine first. And this is a painstaking, laborious, and time-consuming process. But we've got it down to a science at this point because we've done more than, well, anyone else.
Mr. Daly,
yes,
this is reflecting how you're supporting the policy directly?
Yes, ma'am. I think that was the request. It was to provide to go over this again. And so when the complaint comes in, we look at that, and the first thing we do is we compare it to the Florida statute. Statute trumps policy. We look at statute first. If it's a violation of the statute, it gets removed. If it's not, one of these other things happen under step 3. But then next, before we go any further, we look at the board-approved community standards. And anything, statute, policy, language, all of that, is always to a certain degree subjective. So there is a little wiggle room in here, very tiny crevice for that. I'll share that in just a second. But most of the time, we're looking for what I would call a strict interpretation or a strict construction of the statute or policy language. And that has allowed us to navigate this without incurring lawsuits because we've been adherent to that from the beginning. This is an emotional topic. It's less emotional here now than it was. We're creeping up on 3 years. It'll be 3 years in the beginning of November since this issue came to our doorstep. The first year was fast and furious, and it was the most unpleasant year of my professional career. And then it died down. And for the last 2 years, other than a single individual in our community and the occasional board member request, I have not had a phone call or email on this topic for 2 years, other than that. I don't think that individual will go away, but I think our community has spoken on that previous data point, which is why I put it there. So here we receive these complaints, and then we look to, do we reject the complaint as it has no merit? Those are few and far between. We've had some, but we haven't had a lot of those. I'd say that's the smaller category. The second one is it gets removed because it violates the law. It only gets removed if it violates the law. There's no other way it can get removed if it violates the law. There was in the beginning a lot of misconceptions about what the law said, how the law read. People conflated this House bill with that Senate bill with this, and they weren't the same. And so we stuck to it. There were boards in this state that became emotional when presented with some of the evidence on the board floors and made decisions in the heat of the moment because it was an emotional moment that ended up coming back to haunt them in forms of lawsuits and things like that. We stayed the course and stuck to the law, period. There were books that we retained that I personally did not like. There were books that we removed that I personally loved based on the law. And only the law. The law would guide us. I don't make the law. I don't write the law.
So for clarification, when you say the only thing we remove is the law, my impression of our board-approved community standards would mean there would, in certain occasions, could be removable based on our standards as well.
No, ma'am. The way that you all brought that forward, it would be flagged. The only one that would get removed would be based on the law. If there was no piece of that policy that allowed for the removal of a book unless it violated the law, it only was that it would get flagged so that parents would be notified that there was something in it that, while it didn't violate the law, may be problematic for their parenting style and values.
And that's the parental section or
Yes, ma'am.
Remember we used the example heroin over and over and over and over again, that it didn't violate the law, but it was inappropriate for our kids, so we flagged it.
No, I understand. I'm asking questions for clarification because I'm actually not the one that wants the answers.
No, I know, but I'm just saying out loud that is the example we used over and over and over again for the person who needed it.
That's exactly right. And so the board-approved community standards, which, and I give credit to Ms. Hanson for taking this.
But we've not removed anything based on board community standards.
Correct. Nor could there be. So again, we're following a strict interpretation of those things so that we're letting law and policy guide us and not emotion on this topic. Again, it's an emotional topic for me.
But I have a question.
Yes,
With
ma'am.
the board approved community standards, that is also what we are basing our future purchases off of,
Yeah.
correct?
Well, that hasn't been codified, and that's where I said earlier that I have some concerns about how to go forward with that. And you know, I would like guidance on that because there is differences of opinion on how that should be done. My concern, and I don't want to go sort of tangentially here, but is my concern with this, and I've never, maybe someone in the room has seen, I've never seen a situation where one individual in the organization can make an independent decision that other individuals would be on the hook for, right? So let me give you an example. If I'm a library media specialist and I attest that this book that I'm going to purchase meets the community standard and the law, and then I purchase it and it does not, the statute also names the principal and the school board members. So then, are you potentially in the crosshairs of lawsuits and all this type of thing because another individual made a decision that you knew nothing about? But the way I read the law is, that law says that the media specialist, the principal, and the school board are responsible. That's why I stood pat on that.
Legislation allowed for board community standards because every county in the state of Florida is different. So the community standards were a way for districts to codify what their district, what their communities wanted. So what I was trying to clarify was, you're saying your interpretation is that as of right now, we're not really sure to use them when we're buying, because Ms. Skipper asked that. We're not using them to remove books that maybe don't break the law, but certainly shouldn't have been there to begin with. So I guess this is, so we can actually, I'm gonna call to have some kind of a meeting about this because we definitely are gonna have to work out because no legislator sat down and said, every county's gonna do this, 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 and this. They left the opportunity for districts to make these decisions through board community standards. And so this is an area, I did talk to Mr. Blocker about when this comes back up with Neola, there are areas that I think we never really discussed our community standards to begin with. I think this is one of those areas that we're gonna need some clarification. I would love some clarification from the board and to have those conversations.
Mr. Blocker?
Yes, ma'am, if I can respond. So I think, completely understand that. I think what's important is what Mr. Daly's saying, and he's correct, is that when you use that criteria to purchase future books, the way the statute reads is y'all as a board are responsible if there's a violation. So I think what Mr. Daly is saying, because we spoke prior to this, is the staff needs direction from the board because y'all are on the hook going forward. If that is ultimately the standard y'all come up with, y'all are on the hook. So that's why he needs clear. My recommendation is the staff needs clarification from y'all. We don't want to create a legal issue for y'all specifically. That's also why in y'all's policy, the policy flags, I want to give you credit, Mrs. Hanson, all of y'all as the board, because y'all worked very hard on this. It flags the books and removes it because under the statute, books that violate 847 have to be removed. Right. You can set up a community standard, which y'all have done, which by the way is an excellent community standard. I had some other comments I was going to read when it came to my turn, but let me highlight that. Great work on that. However, that allows for flagging of those books, not removal, because that would potentially create some other issues. So I think what Mr. Daly needs some direction, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Daly, is future guidance from y'all or how y'all want to move forward with the purchasing. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and may I respond and say, I don't see this as something that we need to rush into. It's not a front burner issue. I assure you that the shelves of our libraries in high school are not empty. There's not a long line of people. I wish they were. Right? We all wish that kids were reading more. We have hundreds of thousands of titles available, so I think that we can be deliberate and purposeful about coming up with something that protects the entire organization. My goal from the beginning is make sure that we protect our media specialists, our principals, and our board. And we've done that. And that was the goal from the beginning. Sometimes that moves slower than people like, but it was a deliberate and painstaking process to make sure that we didn't mess it up. And I think that going forward, there needs to be conversations because that is tricky. The tricky part being, who's going to read and verify that an entire book, well, I'm gonna order 40 books. You read all 40 books? So I think that needs to shift. There was the way they did it before each individual did it. They would like to do it that way. I think that creates a lot of problems because you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And if you're going to do that with this situation, there's going to be some oversight required. I'll allow you to think about that and guide me at the appropriate time. And at that point, we can try to construct something that will allow us to do that. Again, I'm not worried about elementary at all. I think they have to only junior high. They're not keeping any of the flagged books, so I'm not worried about that nearly as much either. But the high school area, but the high school readership really tumbles too. So I don't feel like this rises to the level of urgency. Yes, it's a passionate topic for some people who want it dealt with a certain way right now. But in terms of all the things we have to do, I think we had 109 legislative actions that related to education this past session. So there's many, many things to punch out. This just becomes a controversial, hot topic. So, it can be a flashpoint. But I think that we can move on this deliberately as we go forward. But to your point, I think the board did a tremendous job. I'll echo what our attorney said. The board approved community. There's not going to be any community standard that's perfect, that pleases everyone. But I will tell you this, it helped us tremendously. It helped us with the appeals because we went retroactively over the summer and reapplied that to every single appeal. That took, I don't know, several hundred hours, by the way, to get that done. But we got it done accurately. That helped. And while it doesn't answer every single question, in your wisdom, you gave us the opportunity to call other people into the room if we got into a hazy situation. We haven't had that yet, but it will occur at some point. But we have every opportunity now to do this correctly going. We have the process down pat. Can we look at the next slide?
That's many of my questions. I wanted myself to understand the appeals process because when we vote on that the procedures and policy were followed, not the content of these books. And so this is like the one area that I wanted to make sure that I or the board has clarification on what we're voting on.
I would imagine, and I'm glad I'm not an elected official, but I would imagine that there are people when they're unhappy, they don't get the outcome that they want, that they would push back on you as an elected official and point their finger and wag it sanctimoniously and say, you haven't done a good job, shame on you. I didn't, but did you follow the law? That's the question. And remember, on the appeal, you're voting that to the best of your knowledge, and your knowledge would be necessarily limited, right? As a school board member, you know a little about a lot, but you don't know everything about everything. No one could. So in this, the petitioner can appeal. Our petitioner appeals at them all. So appeal is submitted to the board. It comes into us. If we can look at the next slide, Mr. North. And so this was the appeals summary. Remember, we had all those appeals sort of sitting there for a while because we weren't sure quite how to go through with it, especially with the volume. So we went through it once we had the board community standards in hand, that allowed us to proceed and take action. And we went back and slogged through all of those things in chunks. And we went from the very beginning. Now, I'm going to give you a little history lesson on this just because it's been a while. A lot has happened. In the beginning of this, these were farmed out to committees that had principals sit on it and community members and others. And while I very much, from the bottom of my heart, appreciated their time and effort volunteering, and because that's, hey, I got to go read a book. Some of those books weren't very fun to read, to be honest. And then they were doing this sort of month after month. Everyone says they want to volunteer to do that, and we had like 3 people, right? And then the principals were like pulled out of their building again, pulled out of the building. But what happened was we had inconsistent rulings that made us vulnerable. They were inconsistent because those principals and those volunteers very understandably aren't immersed in the nuance of law and statute and policy. They only look at it in that moment. All of those committees leaned on the side of, I don't want to restrict or ban a book. Even the most conservative person, I don't say that politically conservative, but people that leaned that way were like, I can't take this, I don't feel American censoring a book. I heard that a lot, that type of thing. Don't want to censor the book. What else can we do? And so what was happening was when they were making the rulings, we would go back and look at it retroactively, and they had allowed books to remain that absolutely violated the law. So that presented exposure for our media specialists, our principals, and for you ladies. And so when and this was the spring of the previous year of 2023, made some adjustment to the process, we were able to go in and form a smaller committee that deals with this all day, all the time. Our lenses were calibrated, we sat down with the procedure, we didn't have that attachment to emotion, it became very objective, and we were able to go through this and deal with it more clinically. Having said that, these appeals from those early ones were still sitting there.
Yeah.
So what we did now, once we had this new policy, we were able to go back in and retroactively apply it. And you can see what the outcomes were here. This is all public knowledge, it's on the website for folks to see. And so these were the various outcomes from all of those.
Mr. Daly, where is your log? That's what I was wanting, a copy.
Dr. Johnson houses that log.
Is it, people can, where is it on the website?
Yes, all this stuff is on the website, but Dr. Johnson could share with you that specifically if you want.
Well, I think it's important that people can go and just see the results of our policy.
There's 4 people that go look at that, and but yeah, you're right, we're required to put it up.
Well, you don't know, because we don't know.
Right.
We don't know who would ever look at it.
Well, I know one person that looks at it, and because he emails me all the time, but I think in general, again, this goes back to the slide we had at the beginning where our parents, 99% of them are saying, we're good, we got this.
No, for me, it doesn't matter if it's 1 person, 10 people, or 100 people. It should just be available for the public to see, that's all.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Next slide, please. So this was the final piece, and I was just alluding to this, is once we were able to shift from having a revolving door of people whose lenses weren't calibrated together, and in my opinion, we're very understandably considering this emotionally. This is what happened. We had a calibrated, nuanced application of law and policy. We understand the work deeply. I was flattered when Mrs. Hanson referred to me as an expert on this. I never thought I'd seek expertise in this area, but there it happened. But this is to protect the district. Not to protect any political viewpoint or anything like that, or an emotional quotient, but just to protect the district, the school board members, principals, and media specialists through consistency in the rulings, which was what we've had. Our data point with 0 lawsuits at this point, I think, demonstrates that more clearly than anything. It's a quick and efficient process. Maybe not quick enough for some, but we're doing it much quicker than we were in the beginning because we know what we're doing. Cost is at 0. We don't have to purchase books for people to read and other materials and things. So fiscally conservative for our taxpayers, and helped with the review process this summer, which I just covered. So that's where we are right now. I feel like where we are right now, we will obviously have, as long as there are a few folks in our community that carry a torch for this, I expect challenges to come in, and then we will deal with them and apply the community standards one at a time as needed, but I feel very comfortable that this is now an extremely manageable thing.
So moving from this day forward, Mr. Daly, when we're talking about this, let's say I'm a grandma and I challenge a book.
Right.
And you say, no, the book is fine, and we're going to put it back on the shelf. I make an appeal. Is it the same people, it's like the same court making that decision about that same book on a challenge and on an appeal?
Well, yeah, but so if she challenged the book and the book doesn't violate the law, it doesn't matter who it's appealed to.
Well, I'm asking about the appeal from this day forward. I know we had to go through a big, huge backlog, and that was great work. But from this day forward, if the same people that the challenge goes to, is it going to be the same group of people the appeal goes to?
Yep.
And is that...
If you would like someone else to look at it, I would be happy to.
No, I'm saying is that qualifies as, I thought in statute, this was the whole part I was...
No, I understand. So I think I understand what you're getting at.
Maybe you can help me figure it out in my mind.
Right, and we can talk more. There's an appeal that's made. Ultimately, the appellate body here is ultimately y'all's the board.
Yeah.
However, but it's just like if a request is made to a judge to recuse themselves, the actual judge hears that and has to apply the law and the standard.
Yeah.
So there's a standard that this committee is reviewing these different efforts. And we're going to have, just from time immemorial, we're gonna have, one or two individuals that are gonna make ongoing appeals. Every decision is made, we're gonna have, we just know, we're prepared, they're gonna be ongoing appeals. It goes back to the committee. If there's a further appeal, it comes to y'all as a board. What y'all are reviewing is making sure the committee has followed the procedures, that they've taken it, they've they've taken what the community standards are, which y'all have created, and that they're applying it. So
It's
you're
a matter of two groups looked at it, as long as we're following our procedures and
correct.
policies.
And I think that the importance of that is, what's important, I think Mr. Daly pointed out, which is a good point, you can have different, just like, they say, if you have 5 lawyers in a room, you have 6 opinions, right?
Yeah.
So you need to have a trained group of people who are familiar with the standards that know how to apply it. If they're not applying it, they're just without even doing it, then that's when the appeal would come to y'all, and y'all may find there are times when the committee has not applied the standard correct, not the content, but applied the standard correctly. And Madam Chair, if it was, I was gonna make some comments later during, but if I could make some comments now, I just wanna highlight a couple of things I think is important. First of all, y'all as a board have done an incredible job creating this. This took a lot of work and it took a lot of effort, and there are other school boards, attorneys are reaching out trying to figure out the work that y'all did, because y'all have avoided a lot of the legal challenges that some of these other communities have gone through. One of the communities I live in is going through a very difficult time because they took a very different approach. But I think it's important that as we kind of go through this, these changes in Florida statute 8047 there were some recent changes that were really implemented to stop this process from being abused and weaponized. I think that's important for y'all to understand that. And part of that is to make sure that the legal definition of a parent or a guardian is in place. So I understand that we've had some questions about that. What is a legal guardian? What is a parent? We don't have to guess about this. We don't have to it's very clear in Florida statute what is a guardian, what is a parent, and my recommendation to y'all is to adhere to that, because when y'all as a board try to go through a different standard, it's going to create challenges. It's going to create legal challenges that ultimately, create problems for us. And this is important because y'all as a district, you have potential actors out there that have different agendas than what y'all are required by law to follow, whether it's getting media attention or pushing a political agenda. But the days of just random citizens walking out with 700, those days are over, and that's okay. Y'all can take a hard line on that. I will advise y'all as your attorney. If y'all are receiving criticism, that criticism is unwarranted. Everyone has an opinion. Y'all could cure cancer tomorrow, and someone will criticize you for not curing Alzheimer's. So that's just the way it is. But y'all are here to do a job. Y'all have come up with a great standard. You're following the law. You're doing it. So some of the criticism that's been forwarded to me is unwarranted, in my opinion. Certainly not legally sufficient. So I would encourage y'all to continue to follow that and really take confidence in what y'all have done legally. But we have one individual in particular, I won't name him, who is not a parent, is not a guardian, does not meet the legal definition of that has walked out with hundreds of. The change in the law was specifically designed to stop that from happening, to stop bogging down the process. So I understand different opinions can matter. Run for the state legislature. If you disagree, run for the state legislature, change the law. But y'all are here trying to implement a very difficult task, very challenging. It's very challenging for staff, very challenging for all the men and women who work behind the scenes to serve the children, and very difficult for y'all. And again, a lot of this criticism is not based on the law, it's not based on court precedent, it's not based on case law, it's based purely on opinions that are not grounded in substance.
And if I can just
Please,
interject
yes,
what
ma'am.
you're saying, when we look at the data for the number of parents who are truly troubled by this versus how many of those parents do you think are truly troubled by the number of students who aren't reading on grade level? Do you know what I mean? Like our staff needs to focus their time and attention on the things that actually make a difference in our community. And it frustrates me when we allow a minor issue to eat so much of their time. As a board, that's what we're here for, to engage with the community, but we're also here to protect what these guys are doing every day to move education forward in this county. So I just want to make sure that we don't occupy time that really should be spent elsewhere.
It will be the last time I ever talk about it, unless it comes up on a policy review or something, and as a board, we decide we need to do something differently. However, clarification of that part is essential if we're following our policy, because our policy specifically says we understand the process, so.
Madam Chair? If I may. And, you know, to the point you made about the appellate process, we've been through more challenges than anyone in the country, hundreds and hundreds, and we haven't erred. I'm not saying I'm not capable of making a mistake there, I absolutely could. But there's only a small sliver of subjectivity in any of these, and we have a process that you wisely put in place where we can punt that to someone else and get more minds in the room. But we've done that to protect the district and protect you. And I can assure you, you will remain protected. There's no task in my entire career that I would rather get rid of than this one and pass to someone else. I also believe, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm the best one to do the job for you. And so I will hold on to it if you wish to continue to protect you and the district, because that's my goal. And I think we can manage it and do so in a way that is collaborative and collegial. We're never going to please everyone. But I will say we've come out of this tough situation, like Clay County Schools always does, in a better situation than we were before. And so we've made, you know, lemonade out of lemons, and I'm proud of that. And I do think that this policy that you ladies have brought forward is as good as it's going to get right now. So I appreciate you very much for that.
Thanks for your clarification about the appeals process.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, we appreciate you.
Same here.
Absolutely. Very merciful.
Yes, ma'am. Be blessed with that. Thank you.
Okay, I got one other, I said I had two. Here's my second one. You know, one of the things that I really try to do is when the board brings things up, I try to focus on those things. I think that's evident from the family engagement piece of that, from the literacy piece of that. One of the topics that's brought up is an internal auditor, right? And so I wanted to provide some information today because I feel like, all right, what's the next step? And the board will eventually ask me and say, how are we doing with that, right? So here's my understanding of where we're at. The board had discussions 2 previous times, workshop, board meeting, kind of agreed, hey, we should use a firm in order to do that work. So I had staff take a look at, okay, what does that look like? How do we do that? Like, what's our next action step as a board to make this happen? So in doing that, here's what this, and I didn't want to give this to you ahead of time, so I just wanted to explain what this is so you can read it, right, and provide the information. So if you're going to hire a firm, you can hire the firm in 3 different ways. So at the top, you see 3 columns. You could do an RFP, right, through the formal RFP process. You can advertise, interview, and establish a contract with a firm. That's the sample would be how we did it with the Douglas Law Firm, that process. Or you could direct contract with a firm that does this work. You have 3 options to use. The left-hand column, that is just the RFP process. So if you want to learn more about how RFPs work, I tried to get it down to a single page with a very complicated process, right? But RFP, you would have a committee. The committee would then define the scope of work. You would then advertise. The committee would then meet, score based on that, et cetera, et cetera. The right-hand piece of the paper is a sample advertisement. Like if we were going to advertise this back out again, then what would an advertisement look like? So that's a sample advertisement. Then on the back, if you skip down, maybe I should put this in a different order, to the firms that provide auditing services, you can kind of see a list of firms that do that. One of the questions that came up was about an internal auditing committee, like the idea of a committee, right? So you'll notice there's 2 blue portions there. There's the sample Lee County Audit Committee, and then you see Lee County Board Policy, the Neola policy, for an auditor selection committee, because there's 2 committees, and I want to make sure you're not confused. So the middle one, the auditor selection committee, is only needed if you're actually doing an RFP. I believe the discussion that went to the auditing committee itself, the internal auditing committee, was the committee that then would be formed to define the scope of work for the audit, right? So that's another thing. So when I looked at the Lee County auditing committee application, you can see that it has some bulleted points there related to it. And their example was, this is just Lee County's, 11-person committee, 7 voting, 4 non-voting members of the committee. And then it says, theirs is superintendent, chief financial officer, school board, and board liaison. And then each board member selects individuals to serve on the committee via an application process. All of the members should be citizens of Lee County. They should all be on no other advisory committee. In other words, you can't be on multiple committees. You're dedicated to the auditing. Have to have a background in certified public accounting, an attorney, or a certified internal auditor. Like, it would be important that somebody that's on the committee actually knows that work. Yeah, like you can't just pick somebody that's not involved in that, because they would truly understand the work and not just be another figure on the committee. So that's what that section is there, because we'll have to give thought to who would be on the committee, like, and how to do that. And then at the bottom, there's a series of firms that do this. In the middle of the series of firms, you can see there's kind of like a top portion and a bottom portion. The top portion are the 5 firms in Florida that do the most work in this area. And the bottom are other ones that, when we looked up the FICPA, those are other ones that do the work in Florida, okay? But the ones at the top are ones that do the most work in our state. You can see RSM is a company out there that does Osceola, Volusia, Marion, Lee, Collier, Brevard, Miami-Dade. They seem to be the leader in that across the state of Florida. Then you can see the second one does St. John, St. Lucie, and Collier. And you can see who Duval uses. So I guess if I had a general question now, and I don't know if the board wants time to think or have a discussion or whatever, is of the 3 areas or the 3 ways of doing this, how does the board want to proceed in order to move the ball forward? Because what will happen is, you'll come back to me in another couple meetings and you'll say, we haven't done anything. Right, so this is me telling you, I've done something. This is what I've done, and now.
Well, you did a lot. I actually like the idea that we have 3 choices.
And now I'm giving it to you, so.
I did appreciate when we were able to choose our law firm. We had great discussions. We did our research. So, as you know, I'm going to leave here shortly. But I wanted to say that I would appreciate that opportunity again, and then the chair would be the one, you know, like you did before, the same way we did it with the.
So you want to advertise? So the 3 options, are you saying you'd like to advertise, interview, and contract? Because I'm kind of in favor of a direct contract.
I was leaning that way
just
as well.
because of the fact that there's
Help me
one-
understand why that would be better. I actually don't know much about this, so.
So the direct contract is, we skip the interview process, and we don't have to do an RFP process either.
Then you could
So we just choose a firm and directly contract with that firm. And the reason I'm in favor of that is because there's one that is a clear leader in the work. So,
And that's really an easy route, but also, if you're looking at the one that's clear, also a proven route.
Exactly. I think it streamlines the process and doesn't overcomplicate it. So really, I feel like the board, we just need a policy that establishes the audit committee. And I like what Lee County has. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel there. I think
I like that as well.
People who have experience help us to direct the focus of the audit.
But we get to pick them, right?
Yeah. Each board member selects. If you look at the,
We don't have to pick a firm today, right? We can just.
oh no, we can't decide, I don't think
Well, that's
today,
what
that would have to be an agenda item.
It's discussion.
Right, so, but if we want to go ahead, I think we would need to establish the committee.
So what would be the steps then if we did a direct
We would just
us
put
right
it on
now.
an agenda, on a regular board meeting
Okay.
agenda, and establish a contract that way.
And at the same time, would we be establishing the committee or the formation of the committee?
Yeah, I don't,
Have to be done before or no?
So my understanding is some are only required if you're actually going through the RFP process. So if you're doing, so I think the board can go ahead and kind of look at, so the RSM, I've gotten some feedback from some of the other school districts as well, just from the attorneys involved. Well-respected, great customer service, I think they would work well. So let's say that's, I'm not precluding that, I'm saying there's interest in that. The two of y'all can authorize the superintendent and staff to start some initial, see what their fees are, start some initial, then we would work on a direct contract to bring it back to the board for approval.
so do you guys want to put that on September's agenda to direct contract with RSM?
Because I know that I've heard of this company, and I think, so I'm about to pack up and leave, but I am with the direct, as you said. I actually know of this firm, and whatever you guys decide, maybe I think it's a good idea to gather us the information so that we can move forward.
Okay, so you're comfortable if we vote on pursuing a direct contract?
I like because it's uncomplicated that way.
Okay, me too.
But I just want to make sure that we have the final say on who's on that committee and the actual auditor.
Yeah, we do, but so if you look at the third bullet point under where it says Lee County School Board Audit Committee Overview and Application, each board member shall select an individual to serve on the committee. So each board member appoints one person to that committee. And the person that you appoint should have this background so that because the point is that none of, well, with the exception of Ms. Clark, none of us have a background in accounting to direct.
These other ones, because there's multiple people on this committee, right? You're looking at the second one, you're looking right here?
At the top, so
Yes.
there would be,
But
if you
there's
look at the top,
individuals with
7 voting members and 4 non-voting. So in Lee County, I'm assuming they have 7 school board members. We have 5. So we would have 5 voting members, and they would each be appointed by each of us. Each of us would appoint one. And then there's 4 non-voting, and I would keep that too. The chief financial officer, the school board attorney, the superintendent, and 1 board liaison. And we don't vote on that committee, but we advise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but there's just underneath it, different ones. Okay, but we're not gonna vote on a firm or these people next. We're just voting on direct contact.
No, I think if we're gonna authorize direct contract, we need to know who we're direct contracting with.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So you don't want to pursue RSM?
Well, I mean, shouldn't we ask if Volusia or Marion or Lee or Collier or Brevard or Miami-Dade actually like those people and they don't wanna get out of contract with them? I just wanna make sure that we talk to.
Well, we don't have to contract. We can give it, if you want time to research it, we can punt it to October.
Okay, Madam Chair, Mrs. Skipper, I think one of the things that we can do is, we don't know what their prices are. We've reached out to some of the other counties and talked to them. Y'all as board members should reach out as well to your counterparts there. What I'm suggesting is if y'all are interested, maybe that top company, we can reach out to them, have staff, to the superintendent, find out what their pricing is for a district our size. Get that, no decision's been made, just explore the relationship, come up with a draft contract. We can move in a different direction. If y'all talk to your counterparts and say, look, that's not the best fit for us, but we have to start somewhere with gathering the information.
No, that's completely fine. I just don't wanna be voting next week on RSM and then we don't even have a price, we don't even have any of that.
We wouldn't be able to, because we'd have to.
Right,
Well, that's what I'm asking, but you keep saying yes, so I don't know. I'm confused at what are we actually
We
voting
can
on?
move the vote back to another time. We could even do a special meeting before the next workshop if we wanted to speed the timeline forward. I think that the direct hiring approach saves a lot of time in the process, because the RFP process is 4 to 6 months.
Which is what I agree with, but what I'm saying is I don't want to vote on all the details.
So all you'd be voting for is giving direction to explore.
Yes.
That's all you're voting on.
That's all I needed to
That's-
but then y'all are
Do we need
trying
to
to,
vote?
she's saying different.
Well, you need to, I would recommend giving direction to, like voting to give direction. Like right now, you're not voting, this is a workshop, is give direction to the superintendent to explore a relationship with that company, but it's not there's no final contract to vote on. Y'all are not
Right.
voting any final
Right.
documents.
Right, that's what I want to make sure of. I want to make sure that we're not
sure.
next week voting on this
For sure.
company when, let's just say within the week and a half that we find out that this is not how we want to go with.
No, ma'am, they just need guidance and direction because we have a whole
Right,
list,
okay.
so.
Could it be
does that-
like, because I'm gonna, remember when we did this with the law firm, where we got information on each law firm? We were given a packet, we could do our own research. I'm assuming you could get the information for us so that we could do our research.
So here's
and
what
then-
I'm saying, if we're just asking for information about
Right.
these companies, I don't think we need to vote to ask for information.
But I think what we would do is
direction
reach
is what
out
you
to them and get information for a
Yeah.
direct contract. Like, we're asking them to provide us information.
Yeah.
That's more than, because there's information here, y'all can go to the websites or read up on it.
Yeah.
But this is more, we need information so we can prepare a contract that y'all can say yes or no to. Y'all can say no.
Yeah, so we still
don't
have a
want-
choice.
Right. Is that, Mr. Brodsky, is that?
Ultimately, we're deciding on the direction, nothing
Correct.
else.
Yes, ma'am.
Is direction.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
what I want to clear up, because that's not what was said.
And
So
we're
that's what I want to make
directing,
sure.
we're directing the superintendent to bring additional information back.
Right, no, that's all I wanted to know,
That makes
because
sense.
she was saying something different than what I was comprehending, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't voting on something that I wasn't prepared to vote on next week. That's what I want to make sure.
Sounds good.
That makes sense.
All right, I'm done.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rossi. So, school board attorney comments?
Just,
Mr. Blackburn?
I'm just gonna ask Mrs. Miles to give up about truancy.
Sure, I just wanted to update you guys on truancy. We met with the chief judge again at the beginning of this month. It was a great meeting. We are scheduled to go October the 9th to go and view Putnam County Truancy Court. I think that will be of great help for our efforts. And myself and Jeremiah are going to get a jump start on that and go ahead down there September the 25th, I believe, to Putnam County Truancy to view court as well on that day.
The board members can go if they want to as well, right?
I would have to find out if the board members could come because it is closed.
If there's any interest in the board members or staff, just let us know. We have to give them a list of who's coming. Then if y'all want to come observe and see or anything, just for informational purposes.
So to be clear, we're in full swing with truancy.
We're in full swing with truancy. The school district should have been implementing their side of things. We are working on the actual court part of it now.
Okay, because I had some people asking, so I just.
So just to be clear, truancy is very truncated from 6,000 people down to very few people, down once you get that to that point. But then there's legal procedures, right? So if you were at the meeting with the judge, it kind of went like this. I explained all the things the school system does to improve attendance and all of that. And then when it reaches the point where I say, hey, I'm done. There's nothing else I can do. Then Lisa takes over with the court documents, right? Because it's a whole legal procedure, which would involve the clerk of courts, the recording of information, the judges. That's why we need legal assistance with that. School system truncates it all the way down to that point, but then we need legal help because it's a legal procedure.
No, I comprehend that. I just want to make sure that we were started.
And if I may ask, when it gets to truancy court,
Yes, ma'am.
what's happening in the court proceedings? In the past, we used to hear if your child is truant, you as a parent could be sent to jail, or you as a parent could be charged because of your child's truancy. Is that still sort of the way it goes or not?
Sort of. So I like to break it down into two parts. Is the civil proceedings in court, and then if that doesn't work, then it turns over. We then send that case to the state attorney's office, and that's why we have the state attorney's office involved in all of this. So they're also attending all of these meetings with the chief judge. They're also organized to come with us to view truancy court in Putnam County because they want to be there at all of these court proceedings civilly, what we're doing. So if that case, if that parent and
child are still not following orders from even judge, then we send that case over to the state attorney's office, and then a first time case is a second-degree misdemeanor, which is punishable by up to 60 days in the county jail or 6 months of probation.
And the judge, so, the judge is going to be Judge Formas. We were doctor partners at the state attorney's office. He has a great demeanor. He's a criminal judge as well, so we'll get to, obviously, the judge will be involved at different points, but this is a last resort. We don't expect a lot of these, parents to be going to jail. This is, multiple opportunities to fix the process before we get to that point.
Do we have any guesstimate as to how many children would have come up for truancy last year? What was the number? Do you remember? Do you know?
No, because it's important to recognize, right, that the statistic that I mentioned of 6,000 people with 18 more, when you start to filter out unexcused from excused, and most of my fan mail over the summer was by people explaining me all of the reasons why they left the defense school, right? Once you do all of that, remember our primary focus is to remove barriers to encourage people to come to school. So the school system is a helping organization. We're not a punishing organization. But we realize that even though you attempt to help people, sometimes people don't take the help.
Correct.
And those are the people that go in that direction. So I don't have the answer to the question, I don't have a number that I can pick.
But I can't imagine it's going to be anywhere near 6,000.
Yeah, absolutely not. No. That would be,
It's going to be a smaller group of,
Much smaller group.
which is what it was in the past.
In the past.
Yes.
And that's,
How many did we have? Do you know?
So it was about 15 per month.
Okay. That was historic, how long ago has that been?
Somebody said it was 8 years,
Yeah.
is what the judge said, so I don't remember it, to be honest.
I remember it more as a teacher than and I mean, even within the school, there were maybe like 2.
Yeah.
Like one family, which included like 3 students, you know what I mean?
So just statewide, it's about 5 to 8% of the population that's true and ends up going into that process. So it's a small number, but you have to have the mechanism in place to hold parents accountable. But it's about 5 to 8%. Well, let's say 10%, round it up.
Requiring them to be parents. There you go.
Well, I think this also gives us the opportunity to find those, well, I won't say that out loud, but those that actually need help in different areas. So that, like you said, we are multiple organizations, so we can find those who truly need help. Like, grandma's taking care of kids and doesn't have transportation.
That's right.
Anything further from your office? All right. School board member comments. Did you guys have anything you wanted to add?
No, just
Keeping in mind you have another meeting after this one.
2 more. 2 more.
I just wanted for us to keep in mind the student that was hit on the bicycle.
Absolutely.
And also the person who hit them.
Absolutely.
Devastating.
I just want to thank the reading team. I'm living early literacy right now, so it's a joy. I'm gonna go home and that while we do,
You watching?
It was a great first day of school. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for welcoming my son as well as my chauffeur. It was, so he was my chauffeur because I still can't drive. But his eyes were opened, and his eyes were open to a lot of the activities. I mean, he graduated in the early 2000s, and just seeing the growth in all of the different programs in high school, and seeing the growth and just how schools operate was eye-opening. It was a fun experience, most definitely.
I had to tell you guys I was at Clay High for freshman orientation, and was talking with Dr. Halter, who told me that they were having the first week of school 30 kids a day show up to register. So the growth, in the Lake Asbury, Green Cove Springs area really has an impact on the schools in those areas. I'd imagine Spring Park Elementary probably had some of the same sort of statistics, but so just kudos to our staff members. I know everybody's probably exhausted.
And their patience, absolutely. Well, even at Grove Park, I mean, we see people lining up to register their kids the first day of school, and it's sort of like, well, it's a little late. Even Chris walked away from that saying, who would think about doing this? I was like, Christopher, there are all sorts of situations in the world and all sorts of situations in these families. But I did see a former student who was enrolling her 5th and 6th grade children, so that's like, student from W.E. Cherry, there you go.
Well, all the new shoes were awesome.
Yes.
They were super outfitted. Everybody had new shoes.
All right, well, this meeting is adjourned, and we'll move on to our next meeting. Are we staying in this room or?